God didn't sculpt you with a chisel. He breathed you into being with love.
Some things are crafted. Others are born of fire, metal, or motion, but not you. You were not the result of a mechanical act or an accidental alignment of time and matter. You were formed with breath. That holy breath carried intention, intimacy, and identity. And that means your existence is not just valid, it is sacred. The world around you tries to market identities like fast fashion. It offers roles to audition for, masks to wear, labels to chase. But before any of that noise ever reached your ears, God had already spoken over you, mine. What He designs, He does not mass produce. What He forms, He does not abandon. And what He claims, He does not forget. Let's step into this truth, not to escape the noise, but to remember what it cannot erase. You were never made to be a copy. You are a masterpiece. He knows the blueprint, so trust the hands that formed you. Not every beginning looks like progress. Sometimes it just looks like stillness or confusion or a strange, quiet space where you feel more uncertain than inspired. But even in that quiet, something is happening. Because you don't begin with your own idea of yourself, you begin with God's idea of you. And that idea was never average, accidental, or vague. It was exact, intentional, loving. In Psalm 139, we read, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb." This isn't just poetic imagery. It's a holy reminder that your soul, your personality, your wiring, your heart, it was all hand-woven. Not compiled in a factory, not copied from a template, knit, line by line, thread by thread, which means that even the parts of you that feel fragile were made on purpose. And even the threads you try to hide are part of the pattern God calls beautiful. The reason this matters so deeply is because life will try to convince you that your value is negotiable, that your worth must be earned, that your purpose depends on your performance. But that's not how God writes identity. He didn't consult a checklist before He created you. He didn't wait to see how you would turn out before calling you His. That truth should silence every whisper of insecurity you've ever believed. Mark Batterson once wrote, "God's work is always purposeful, even when it feels invisible." That means you're not just being shaped in the obvious seasons when things are flourishing, or goals are being hit, or dreams are falling into place. You're also being shaped in the quiet, in the not yet, in the days you feel lost or uncertain. In fact, those are the places where God's design often takes its deepest root. Because transformation doesn't start with action. It starts with trust. Trust in the one who began the work long before you could see it. And sometimes the hardest person to trust in God's plan is yourself. Not because you don't believe in Him, but because you feel inadequate, behind, or somehow not enough. But Christine Caine reminds us, you are not a random accident. You are a divine intention. That means even the doubts you feel were factored into His design. Even the wounds you've carried have not disqualified you from the story He's still telling through your life. You were not built for speed, you were built for substance. Your journey isn't about how fast you arrive at your goals. It's about learning to walk daily with the one who already knows what's ahead. It's about believing that the blueprint for your life hasn't changed just because your circumstances did. Because God's designs are not subject to opinion polls or shifting seasons. He finishes what He starts. And what He started with you is a life that carries weight, not because it looks impressive, but because it was imagined in love and formed by eternity. There are parts of you that you still don't understand. traits you haven't fully grown into, and callings that feel bigger than your capacity. That doesn't mean you failed. It just means the blueprint is still unfolding, slowly, precisely, faithfully. When you look in the mirror, what do you see first? The flaw, the wrinkle, the thing you wish you could change? Or do you see what God sees? A soul He shaped with purpose, a heart worth redeeming, a design worth celebrating. It's hard. Culture teaches us to scrutinize every detail, compare every part, and chase something shinier. But God never called you to be shiny. He called you to be whole. So when you're tempted to shrink into someone else's shape just to be accepted, remember this. He didn't ask you to audition. He already appointed you. And when you feel like you're not enough, remind your soul who crafted you. Not trends, not timelines, not other people's standards, but the very same God who spoke galaxies into being and yet still chose to write your name on His palm. You see, when God knits, He doesn't make mistakes. When God builds, He doesn't need backup plans. And when God chooses someone to carry His light into the world, He doesn't do so lightly. You were chosen not because you had all the answers, but because you were willing to be formed. And that willingness is where miracles begin. You don't need to feel ready to be ready. You don't need to be fearless to move forward. You don't need to know the outcome to take the next step. You just need to know who made you and trust that He still holds the pattern. Let this truth become a habit in your morning. Before you reach for your phone, before you read a single word from the world, speak this to your own soul. I was designed with purpose. I am part of a holy blueprint. God's hands formed me, and His hands still hold me. If that becomes your starting point each day, the noise of this world will shrink, the comparison will fade, and you'll start to recognize the quiet, steady confidence that comes from being loved long before you were seen. There's a reason why you are here, right now, in this exact moment. You didn't miss your moment. You didn't fall behind. You didn't somehow mess up the master plan, because in the heart of God, timing is never late and worth is never lost. You are not just another name in a sea of people. You are not just a face in the crowd. You are a blueprint that bears His fingerprints, a living story still being written, a design formed with divine love that cannot be duplicated, no matter how hard the world tries to standardize your soul. So if the world makes you feel like you have to change to be chosen, remember you already are. You're chosen, you're called, and you're created. Not just for survival, but for significance. And not just any kind of significance, but the kind that only comes when you trust the one who wrote your name in the sky of His story and still whispers it with every breath. Hold that truth tightly. Let it walk with you. Let it speak louder than your doubts. Because when you remember who formed you, you begin to live not for approval, but from it. Not as a product of pressure, but as a promise unfolding. And no matter what you face, confusion, failure, uncertainty, rejection, nothing can erase the truth of how you were formed. Knit, with care, with clarity, with holy intention, you are the handiwork of heaven, the detail that delighted God, the proof that love doesn't make copies, it creates miracles. So the next time you question your worth, trace it back to the hands that formed you, because that's where your story began, and it's where your strength still lives. The world sells copies, but heaven still celebrates originals. It starts small, this pressure to become like someone else. Sometimes it's a look, a subtle tone and a voice, a post you scroll past that quietly suggests you're not quite enough as you are. Other times, it's more direct, an expectation from family, a comparison with a friend, a voice that's been playing in the back of your mind since you were young, repeating one persistent lie. You're only as valuable as how well you fit in. That pressure over time becomes weight. It shapes the way we talk, the goals we set, the version of ourselves we allow to be seen. And without even realizing it, we trade in our authenticity for acceptance. But here's the sacred truth the world won't tell you. God never asked you to fit in. He asked you to shine. In Romans 12:2, Paul writes with piercing clarity, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." This is not a suggestion, it's a lifeline. Because conformity might win you the applause of the world, but it will cost you the voice of your soul. And your soul was meant for more than performance. It was meant for communion with God, with purpose, with truth. And yet, the culture we live in thrives on sameness. Trends come like waves, pulling people into identical rhythms, how to look, what to say, who to become. But God's creativity has never worked in templates. Just look at the sky. No two clouds have ever danced the same way across it, and not one snowflake has been duplicated. Why would you be the exception? Theodore Roosevelt once said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." That's not just a clever phrase. It's a devastating reality. Because every time you compare your unique design to someone else's highlight reel, you begin to shrink the glory of what God intended for you. You start measuring your story by someone else's chapter. You begin to despise what makes you different, not realizing that what sets you apart is what heaven celebrates most. And yes, comparison is sneaky. It dresses itself in self-improvement. It whispers under the guise of motivation. But at its core, it teaches you to look outward for value rather than inward for purpose. That's why it drains your joy. Because you can't be fully alive while secretly wishing you were someone else. God doesn't anoint replicas. He anoints originals. John Mason once wrote, "You were born an original, don't die a copy." And those words carry the kind of conviction that shakes you awake. Because the more you hide your uniqueness, the more the world misses the part of God's beauty that only you carry. Your voice, your humor, your way of seeing people, your burdens and blessings. They form a fingerprint on the world that no one else can leave. It's not your job to be what others expect. It's your calling to be what God created. That means living honestly, courageously, not perfectly polished, but deeply present. And yes, that will come with moments of insecurity. You will question whether being yourself is enough. You will face people who want to mold you into something they can understand or use or control. But remember this, Jesus was rejected not because he blended in, but because he dared to be different, to speak truth, to walk in holiness, to love radically. So when you feel that tension between who you are and who the world wants you to become, stand still. Breathe. Return to the words God has already spoken over you. Words like beloved, chosen, set apart. These are not just poetic labels. They're divine realities, and they don't change just because culture moves on to the next thing. It's tempting to chase validation, to shapeshift until you get the nod of approval. But validation that costs you your authenticity is not validation. It's a trap. Because if you have to become someone else to be loved, then the love you're receiving isn't really yours. It belongs to the version you've created, not to the soul God designed. Living as your true self is not about stubbornness or pride. It's about stewardship. It's about recognizing that the identity God gave you is not yours to erase. You are a vessel, a bearer of His image, and every time you honor who He made you to be, you're worshiping Him in a way that no song or sermon ever could. And the truth is, you'll never outrun the world's opinions, but you don't have to live by them, because opinions change, trends fade, but the identity rooted in God is eternal. So instead of editing yourself to match what's trending, anchor yourself in what's true. That you were created in the image of a wildly creative God who makes no mistakes. That your quirks, your voice, your wounds and wisdom, they're all ingredients in a masterpiece still unfolding. Transformation doesn't require imitation. It requires surrender. And that kind of surrender, the kind where you lay down your masks, your people-pleasing, your pretending, is where real growth begins. That's where your life stops being a performance and starts being a prayer. When the world demands you become less so others feel like more, you're not being selfish by protecting your soul. You're being faithful. You're saying, I won't trade the sacred for the shallow. I won't exchange my God-given identity for a temporary image. And that takes courage. In fact, it might be one of the most courageous things you ever do. Not climbing a mountain or achieving a title, but staying rooted in a world that rewards artificiality. Choosing real over impressive. Integrity over imitation. Purpose over popularity. So how do you live that out? This call to be original in a world of copies. Not by becoming loud, not by forcing difference, but by staying in daily communion with the one who made you, by letting His word shape your heart more than the world shapes your habits. By looking in the mirror each morning and seeing more than flaws, you see design. You begin to live with a kind of gentle defiance, not to prove anything to anyone, but to honor everything God placed inside of you. You walk into rooms without needing to be the loudest voice, because you know the quiet strength of someone who belongs to God. You choose presence over performance, peace over striving, wholeness over hustle. Because when you finally stop trying to become someone else, you give yourself back to the God who never stopped loving who you really are. And yes, there will be days when it feels easier to blend in, to dim your light so no one feels uncomfortable, to soften your convictions so no one walks away. But remember what Jesus said in Matthew 5:14, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden." That's not a metaphor to make you feel good. That's an identity statement. He didn't say, try to be a light. He said, you are. So live like it. Not to prove your worth, but to reveal His. Let the world do what it does. Let it sell images and formulas and facades. You weren't made for that. You were made to stand in the light of God's truth and reflect it in a way only you can, so hold fast. When the pressure rises, remember this: you are not a copy. You are not a role to perform or a brand to build. You are a soul handcrafted by the maker of the stars, filled with light the world cannot comprehend. Live like someone who's already accepted by heaven because you are. Live like someone who has nothing left to prove because you don't. Live like someone whose name was whispered by God before the foundation of the world, because that's the truth. Don't shrink to make others feel more comfortable. Don't twist yourself to fit someone else's expectation of holy. Holiness doesn't mean being quiet and small. It means being fully alive in the truth. It means radiating the love of Christ through the shape of your own story, through the personality you've been given, through the fire that only you carry. You are not here to impress. You're here to impact. You're not here to follow the script. You're here to follow the Spirit. And that's where your life becomes unshakable. When it's no longer about proving yourself, but about presenting yourself as a living reflection of the God who formed you. The world wants more of the same, but God is raising up people who will dare to be different, who will speak when others stay silent, who will love when it's inconvenient, who will choose holiness when compromise seems easier, people who will say, I am who He says I am, and that's enough. So keep walking in your design. Let your faith be loud in your actions. Let your identity be rooted deeper than applause. And let your soul rest, not in what others think, but in what God has already said. You don't have to become what this world rewards to matter in God's kingdom. You just have to stay faithful to who He made you to be. That is where your power lies. That is where the anointing flows. And that is where your peace will return again and again. You were never called to become a shadow of someone else's spotlight. You were called to carry light, the kind that doesn't compete, the kind that doesn't dim, the kind that only burns brighter the closer it gets to the source. And heaven rejoices not when you meet someone else's expectations, but when you live into the full truth of your God-given design. Flaws don't cancel beauty. They reveal the artist. Somewhere along the way, many of us were taught that beauty means perfection. That if something is scratched, bent, weathered, or wounded, it loses its worth. But that's not how the artist sees it. That's not how God sees you. He's not threatened by what's broken. He's not embarrassed by your weakness. He doesn't withdraw when you fall short. In fact, what you often call flawed, He calls formed. There's a sacred tension in being human. We long to be whole, yet we carry cracks. We hunger for joy, but grief finds its way in. We want to be strong, yet we stumble. And still, God is not disappointed in our limitations. He doesn't shake His head in regret. He meets us in the gap, not with shame, but with grace. He sees what we call ruined and calls it redeemable. That's the power of divine love. It doesn't require us to hide what's been bruised. It invites us to see how those places can reflect light differently, more tenderly, more honestly, more beautifully. In 2 Corinthians 12:9, Paul records the words of Jesus, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." This is not a verse to skim over. It's a declaration that shifts everything. It tells us that God does not need us to be flawless to be powerful. He does not anoint perfection. He pours strength into the cracks. That's where His glory doesn't compete with ours. That's where we stop striving and start surrendering. Some will try to sell you the idea that you must fix everything before you can be used by God. That unless you're polished, you're not ready. But the gospel tells a different story. It tells of fishermen who doubted, a tax collector who betrayed, a woman at the well who was shunned, and a man who denied Christ 3 times, and yet all of them became pillars in the story of redemption, not because they were flawless, but because they were willing. That should comfort us. You don't have to erase your humanity to reveal God's holiness. In fact, your humanity might be the very lens through which others finally see Him. Your battle with insecurity, your struggle with control, your history of pain, none of that disqualifies you. It just proves you're human. And God never asked for anything more. Leonard Cohen once wrote, "There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." Those words feel like scripture to anyone who has ever sat in the middle of their mess and wondered if it still mattered. Because the light of Christ doesn't just come to sit in our strength. It comes to fill the places that tremble, that ache, that feel too small or too much. And if that sounds too gentle to be true, consider the life of Christ Himself. The resurrected Jesus could have appeared with a body fully healed, fully restored. No scars, And yet, he chose to show the marks in his hands and feet. He chose to let Thomas place his hand in his side. Why? Because the scars weren't signs of failure. They were proof of love. And maybe yours are too. We often carry our wounds like shameful secrets. But what if the things you're hiding are the things God most wants to use? Not to shame you, but to show the world what healing looks like in real time. Not every story of grace ends with a bow tied neatly around it. Sometimes grace just means you kept walking, that you didn't give up, that you stayed soft even after being hurt. Morgan Harper Nichols once said, "Your imperfections are not mistakes. They are brushstrokes of a masterpiece in progress." That line speaks to the soul like a friend placing their hand on yours. It reminds you that what feels undone is still being shaped, that what looks chaotic from your angle is being composed by a steady, divine hand. The truth is, if we spend our lives trying to appear perfect, we rob others of the encouragement they need most, knowing they're not alone in their struggle. When you share the part of your story that still feels raw, you're not being weak, you're being brave. Because that's where healing begins, in the honesty of what still hurts. We live in a culture obsessed with filters and fixes. We're told to hide the tired eyes, silence the shaky voice, perfect the image. But God is not impressed with your performance. He's drawn to your presence, to your heart, to your willingness to be real with Him. And in that place of rawness, His Spirit moves. Not to shame you, but to strengthen you. You are allowed to have weaknesses. You are allowed to not have it all together. God never required you to be a model of perfection. He just asks you to be available, to be open, to let Him use even the parts you've tried to bury. If you've been carrying regret, let this be the moment you release it. Regret keeps you chained to a version of yourself that no longer exists. But grace reminds you that growth is possible even from the hardest soil. What once hurt you doesn't have to define you. It can refine you. And where the world sees a mess, God sees a beginning. Imagine what could happen if you stopped apologizing for your flaws. If you stopped waiting to be fixed before you stepped forward. You were never called to be flawless. You were called to be faithful. And faithfulness often looks like trying again, showing up anyway, saying yes, even when your voice shakes. You are still being formed. And the marks that prove your journey are not blemishes. They're signs that you kept going, that you were stretched and shaped and pressed, but never abandoned. You are not a broken thing to be hidden. You are a living testimony of how grace rebuilds. So let your flaws speak, not in shame, but in honesty. Let them become the soil where compassion grows. Let them shape your prayers, deepen your empathy, and soften your judgments. The most beautiful souls are often the ones who have been cracked open and still chose to love. You do not need to curate yourself into worthiness. God's love met you long before you tried to earn it, and it will meet you again today. In the middle of your doubt, in the silence of your disappointment, in the tender ache that something in your life still hasn't healed. Even there, especially there, His voice still speaks, "You are mine." That kind of love changes things. It rewrites the internal narrative. It silences the critic in your head. It frees you from the exhausting pursuit of perfection and invites you into peace. And peace doesn't come when everything is fixed. It comes when you finally accept that you are already held. You don't have to strive to be loved. You are loved. You don't have to hide to be seen. You are seen. And you don't have to be strong all the time to be valuable. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is be honest about your need. That's not failure, that's freedom. In a world that demands you be polished, God invites you to be real. In a culture that prizes the filtered, He celebrates the faithful. And in a life that will inevitably include both beauty and brokenness, He promises to work all things together for your good, even the parts you'd rather skip. So stop waiting to be perfect before you walk in your purpose. It's your cracks that reveal the light, your flaws that invite grace, your honesty that draws others into healing, and your story, yes, your real, unfinished, imperfect story, is the canvas where God is still painting glory. You are a masterpiece, not because you are flawless, but because you are held by the one who never lets go. And every brushstroke, even the ones you didn't ask for, is part of a design that is more beautiful than you can yet imagine. Let today be the day you stop hiding. Let it be the day you stop measuring yourself by impossible standards. Let it be the day you believe deeply that you are not damaged goods. You are deeply loved, fully known, and still called. The artist is not finished with you, and he never regrets what he began. Grow into the image, not into the expectation. There's a quiet pressure that follows most people, even if they can't quite name it. It's not always loud. It doesn't always come with criticism or commands, but it lingers like background music in your soul, the sense that you need to be more, do more, please more. The expectation of becoming something that sounds noble but feels exhausting. Sometimes it even wears a spiritual disguise, telling you that if you were more like them, more disciplined, more bold, more together, then maybe you'd finally be doing life right. But God never asked you to grow into an expectation. He invited you to grow into His image. One is suffocating, the other is sacred. The expectations of the world, even the well-meaning ones, can become cages. They give you roles to play instead of space to grow. They ask for performance without knowing your process. And they rarely make room for weakness, mystery, or slow transformation. But the image of God, that's different. That's not a script, it's a shaping. Not a product you must become, but a presence you are called to reflect. 2 Corinthians 3:18 paints this picture so beautifully. And we all, who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory, are being transformed into His image with ever-increasing glory. Did you catch that? Being transformed. Not instantly perfect, not pressured into change, not immediately qualified. You are in a process, and it is holy. When you look to Christ, you are not looking at a model to copy perfectly. You are looking at the source who reshapes you gently, gradually, with grace. And unlike the world, He doesn't grow impatient when you take longer than expected. He doesn't withdraw when you stumble. He stays, He works, He transforms. Jenny Allen once wrote, "Don't chase success, chase surrender." That's not just a shift in goal, it's a whole different way of living. Because chasing expectation is a form of control, but growing into the image of God is a kind of surrender. You let go of who you thought you had to be, and you let Him call forth who He made you to be. One step at a time. Some expectations come from the outside, from people who think they know what's best for you, from systems that define worth by productivity, from communities that value appearance over authenticity. But some of the heaviest expectations are the ones we place on ourselves. The inner pressure to always have the right answer, to never need help, to prove that we're good enough, holy enough, strong enough. But the image of God was never about performance. It's about presence. It's about the way you carry love, the way you reflect truth, the way you walk in grace, even when your knees are trembling. And the transformation that matters most doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in secret. It happens when no one's clapping, when no one sees the effort, when the fruit isn't obvious yet, but still you're growing. You're praying. You're showing up. You're letting go of your plans to make room for His. Lisa TerKeurst once said, "The real victory is not becoming what others applaud, but becoming who God intended." That sentence deserves to be written on every mirror and spoken over every weary heart. Because applause fades, approval shifts. But who God intended you to become, that identity lasts. It was written before you were born, and it won't be erased by anyone's opinion. So ask yourself this: are you growing into an expectation, or are you growing into the image? The difference matters. Expectations say, "Get it right." God says, "Walk with me." Expectations demand, "Don't fail." God whispers, "When you fall, I'll catch you." Expectations want a product. God wants your heart. One exhausts, the other restores. And here's something you might need to hear today. You are not behind. You're not too late. The timeline you're comparing yourself to, it's not God's. His growth doesn't always follow the logic of calendars or the rhythm of culture. His growth moves to the pace of trust, of faith, of obedience. You might not see the results yet, but that doesn't mean transformation isn't happening. Roots grow in silence, character forms in obscurity, and spiritual strength is often built in seasons where everything feels small and unseen. The question is not, am I growing fast enough? It's, am I staying close enough to the one who grows me? And staying close doesn't mean performing. It means being honest. When you're tired, tell Him. When you're confused, ask Him. When you're disappointed, bring that to Him too. He is not looking for a spiritual version of you that only exists on your best days. He's looking for you, the real, messy, in-process you. Because that's the one He died for. That's the one He lives in. That's the one He is transforming. You don't have to outgrow your weakness to reflect Christ. Sometimes your weakness is the very canvas where His strength is most visible. Transformation doesn't mean the absence of struggle. It means the presence of grace in the midst of it. So when people place expectations on you that don't align with God's voice, release them. When you feel crushed by standards you can't meet, breathe. You were never meant to carry what He didn't ask you to hold. This doesn't mean growth is easy. It's not. It means choosing surrender over striving. It means believing that even when it feels slow, it's still sacred. It means looking at who you were 6 months ago, not with shame, but with gratitude. I may not be where I want to be yet, but look at how far God has brought me. You don't become like Christ by trying harder. You become like Christ by staying near Him. And in that nearness, your priorities shift. Your heart softens. Your motives purify. Your soul exhales. It's easy to think that spiritual growth is about becoming more impressive, but often it's about becoming more free, more humble, more kind, more attuned to His voice than the noise of the crowd. The world will try to define you by what you do. God defines you by who you are becoming, and that's not based on performance. It's based on presence, yours, His, together. Let go of the script you were handed, the one that says you should have achieved more by now, or been stronger, or more visible, or more like someone else. That script wasn't written for you. God's story is better. And in His story, growth looks like grace layered on top of honesty, like strength emerging from surrender, like peace rooted not in circumstance, but in trust. You are being transformed, even on the days when you feel like nothing's changing, even in the dry seasons, even when your prayers feel empty. Even there, He is still at work. And when you stop trying to meet every expectation, you make room for something better, to simply be with Him, to sit at His feet, to ask Him what He sees in you that you've forgotten, to invite Him into the parts of your life you've been trying to fix on your own, because God doesn't rush what He values, and He values you. So give yourself permission to grow slowly, to learn deeply, to be reshaped gradually. Don't despise the in-between. That's where identity is solidified, not in what you're doing, but in who you're becoming. Maybe the reason you feel tired isn't because you're failing, it's because you're trying to live up to something that was never yours to carry. Maybe today is the invitation you've needed, not to stop growing, but to start growing in the right direction, toward God, toward freedom, toward your true design. You are not a disappointment. You are not too much or not enough. You are a reflection in progress, an image being refined, a soul being restored. And the God who began this work in you, He will complete it. Not because you're strong, but because He is faithful every time. Shine without permission, because you were lit by heaven. There comes a point in every journey where you have to decide who gets to define your radiance. Will it be the people who misunderstood you? The culture that only applauds what's marketable? The critics who only see what you lack? Or will it be the God who lit your soul with eternal flame and called it good? You don't have to ask the world for permission to shine. You were lit by heaven. From the very beginning, the light inside you wasn't manufactured. It wasn't borrowed. It wasn't based on talent, timing, or trends. It was spoken into existence by the same voice that said, "Let there be light," and watch the darkness flee. So what makes you think you need to shrink now? What makes you believe you must dim your glow just because someone else doesn't understand it, celebrate it, or reflect it? In Matthew 5:14, Jesus says with a clarity that cuts through generations, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Not should be, not try to be, not if you're good enough, maybe someday will be. No, you are. It's not a compliment, it's a calling. And that light inside you wasn't placed there to fit in. It wasn't meant to be quiet. It wasn't made to be safe. It was meant to be seen. But here's what's hard. The world will often ask you to turn down your light because it's not ready to deal with its own shadows. It will project discomfort. It will mislabel your passion as pride, your confidence as arrogance, your boldness as too much. Don't let that keep you quiet. Don't let fear dress itself up as humility. Maya Angelou once said, "Don't dim your light just because it's shining in someone else's shadow." That line stays with you, doesn't it? Because how many times have you apologized for who you are? Not because you were wrong, but because your truth made someone else uncomfortable. But God never gave you that light to make others feel small. He gave you that light because the world is dark and He needed you in it. He needed your voice where silence has been heavy. He needed your story in rooms where shame had the final word. He needed your joy in spaces where sorrow used to live. You are not just a person walking through life. You are a bearer of divine light, and you carry it into places where others have forgotten how to hope. Bob Goff once said, "God has planted greatness in you. Let it grow wild." What a thought. That maybe the most obedient thing you could do today is stop taming your light. Stop packaging it in small talk. Stop apologizing for being on fire with things that matter. This is the season to burn brighter, not because of ego, but because of assignment. You're not shining to be noticed. You're shining because you've been found. You're not stepping forward to be praised. You're stepping up because others need to see what faith looks like when it walks, not just when it speaks. Light doesn't argue, it doesn't perform, it just shows up and the darkness retreats. So when you feel that old urge to hide, to soften your words, to fade into the background, to let fear narrate your next decision, pause. Ask yourself this: who am I dimming my light for? And why do they get more say over my life than the one who gave me breath? The people who are for you will never ask you to be less. The God who made you will never ask you to become invisible. The world needs more than politeness right now. It needs presence, real, rooted, radiant presence. And that's what you carry when you walk in the fullness of who God made you to be. You don't have to scream to be seen. You don't have to prove anything to shine. You just have to stay connected to the source. That means spending less time polishing your image and more time praying for your endurance. Less time wondering who's watching and more time wondering who needs your light right now. Because someone does. Someone is waiting for a person just like you to stop hesitating, to rise, to speak, to be bold enough, to be real, to step into that God-given space with open hands and say, Lord, use me. Even if my voice shakes, even if I feel unworthy, even if I don't see the full picture yet, I'll still show up. That's what shining really is. It's not perfection. It's not platform, it's presence. It's faith walking into ordinary moments with extraordinary expectation. And listen, you don't owe the world a performance, but you do owe God your obedience. He gave you that light for a reason. Don't bury it under layers of fear, doubt, or comparison. Fan it, guard it, walk in it. Let them see the fire and feel the warmth. Let them wonder what keeps you burning. And when they ask, point them back to the source. You are the light of the world, not the backup light, not the emergency light, not the when everything's perfect light. The light right now, as you are. So shine, even when it's quiet, even when no one claps, even when it scares you, especially then, because every time you step into your calling without apology, heaven celebrates and hell trembles. You were never meant to disappear. You were never called to become a copy. You were spoken into existence by the God who creates wonders, not duplicates. So if today has left you weary, uncertain, or tempted to shrink, I want you to hear this as clearly as if it were whispered straight from heaven. You are God's masterpiece, not because of what you've done, not because of how others see you, but because of who formed you, lovingly, intentionally, and without regret. So don't trade His design for the world's imitation. Don't bend your soul just to fit someone else's mold. The light inside you is real, it's needed, it's sacred. Shine anyway.
Prayer doesn't move God's will. It moves my heart to meet it.
We don't pray to convince heaven. We pray because something inside us is shifting, or needs to. And maybe you've been carrying that shift for a while now. Maybe your faith has been quieter than usual. Maybe your soul is tired of just surviving. The truth is, prayer was never meant to be a performance. It was always meant to be a place. A space where your heart could finally rest in truth. So let me ask you gently, not to shame you, but to awaken something. When was the last time you prayed with all your heart? Faith grows in honest conversations, not perfect words. We tend to overthink prayer. We assume there must be a right tone, a perfect posture, a holy sounding rhythm, as if God only tunes in when we speak in religious code. But that's not who He is. The God who shaped you from dust doesn't need poetry. He needs honesty. Not the kind of honesty that sounds noble or well packaged. He wants the kind that aches, the kind that stammers, the kind that admits, I don't even know how to begin. So many people pull away from prayer because they feel unworthy to speak. They look at their doubts, their distractions, their inconsistencies, and they think, how could I possibly approach God with this? But that's exactly what God wants you to bring. Not your performance, your presence, not your perfection, your personhood. Martin Luther once said, to be a Christian without prayer is no more possible than to be alive without breathing. Prayer isn't just what we do when we're desperate. It's what keeps us spiritually alive. The same way lungs expand with breath, the soul expands with prayer, not mechanical repetition, not surface level niceties, but the kind of prayer that breaks through the noise and touches the place in you that still believes in something deeper, even if just barely. And here's the surprising truth. Your weakness doesn't disqualify you from prayer. It qualifies you for intimacy. Kierkegaard put it beautifully. The function of prayer is not to influence God, but rather to change the nature of the one who prays. You may not see it at first. You may still be in the middle of unanswered questions or situations that remain unchanged. But prayer has never been about instant results. It's about internal renewal. It's about a quiet shift from fear to trust, from hiding to returning, from resisting to surrendering. Sometimes we don't know what to say because we're afraid of saying the wrong thing. But what if the only wrong thing is silence when your heart is screaming? God already knows the thoughts you don't dare speak. He isn't scandalized by your humanity. He's not keeping score. He's waiting for relationship, the kind that shows up even when it's messy. Have you ever sat in stillness and simply said, God, I don't have fancy words, but I need you right now? That too is prayer. You don't have to recite a formula. You don't have to be composed. You don't need to feel ready. Sometimes the most powerful prayers are the ones that sound more like whispers or sighs than grand declarations. The most transformative moments are often the ones that begin with a quiet, help me. Jeremiah 33:3 contains one of the most simple yet comforting promises. Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know. Not perform for me, and I'll respond. Not prove your worth, and I'll consider it. Just call, speak, reach, begin. God is not moved by polish. He's moved by proximity. He responds not to your eloquence, but to your openness. This is where faith begins to grow, not in abstract theory, but in honest dialogue. Not in rituals repeated without thought, but in moments when you finally tell God what you've really been thinking, what you're afraid to admit even to yourself. Growth in faith isn't always marked by bold confidence. Sometimes it starts with broken confessions. Real prayer is a return to that vulnerable space. You've probably had seasons where prayer felt dry, where you knelt and nothing stirred, where the words felt like echoes in an empty room. That doesn't mean your prayer failed. That means your soul was learning the difference between sensation and substance. Prayer isn't measured by how emotional it feels in the moment. It's measured by your willingness to show up, even when the emotions are numb. And showing up doesn't always mean kneeling for hours. Sometimes it's just sitting on the edge of your bed and saying, God, I don't even know what I need today, but I want to start this day with you. That's it. That's the spark. That's the mustard seed. And faith, as we're reminded in Scripture, doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be alive. We forget that spiritual maturity doesn't look like unshakable confidence. It often looks like deeper honesty. When you start speaking to God from a real place, you stop performing for approval and start abiding in grace. You don't pray to impress God. You pray to let Him in. You pray to stop running. You pray to come home. The church has often emphasized prayer life as something you cultivate through discipline. And yes, structure helps. But the root of a true prayer life is not duty, it's connection. Imagine being with someone you love deeply. You don't talk to them because you have to. You talk to them because something feels off when you don't. You feel distant, disconnected. That's the heart of prayer, a return to relationship, a tether to something holy that pulls you back when life scatters your focus. Maybe you haven't prayed in a while because you think God is disappointed, but that's not how He sees it. God isn't holding a stopwatch. He's holding out His hand. You don't have to explain your delay. You just have to say His name. Sometimes the most powerful beginning is the simplest one. Jesus. That one name, spoken with heart, carries more weight than hours of polished theology. Because it's not about how long you speak, it's about who you're turning toward. When you say His name, you're saying, I remember who I belong to. If you're feeling distant, if you're unsure how to re-enter that space of prayer, start by being honest. God, I've been numb. God, I've been angry. God, I feel lost. That's a valid prayer. That's a sacred start. The enemy of your soul wants you to believe that silence is safer. But the truth is, silence only deepens the ache. Honesty, even in fragments, opens the door. You don't have to wait until you feel spiritual. You just have to come as you are. That phrase might sound cliche, but it's still true. God isn't waiting for a cleaned up version of you. He wants the version sitting in your chair right now. Tired, distracted, still scrolling, still hoping something in this message will speak directly to what you need. Here's what you might need to hear. You can begin again, not just tomorrow, now, in this very breath. Your heart is still capable of real connection. Your faith can be rekindled, not through guilt, but through grace. Not through pressure, but through presence. There's a shift that happens when prayer becomes more than a habit. It becomes a home, a place you long for, a place where nothing has to be filtered. And when that happens, when your soul learns to rest there, everything else in life begins to align more clearly. Not because your problems disappear, but because your peace grows deeper. So where do you begin if prayer feels foreign right now? Right here, right now, with a whisper, a breath, a single sentence. God, I'm still yours. That sentence might feel small, but it will open doors in the spiritual realm that logic can't explain. The more you return to this space of honesty, the more you'll find that your faith no longer needs perfect conditions to flourish. It will grow even in dry places. It will stretch in silence. It will strengthen when you keep returning, not because you have all the answers, but because you trust that God still does. So if you've been walking through a silent season, if your heart has been heavy, your soul distracted, your faith on pause, let this be your reminder. You haven't missed your chance. The door of prayer is still open. Heaven is still listening. And all God is asking from you right now is your heart. Return to the secret place. God still waits there. There's a quiet room inside the human soul that doesn't unlock with effort, only with surrender. And maybe you've walked past that room too many times lately, distracted by duties, weighed down by decisions, or just weary from the noise of life. Maybe prayer used to be something you cherished, but now it's something you keep postponing. Not out of rebellion, just out of exhaustion. But here's the truth most of us forget. When we feel far from God, He has not moved. The secret place, that space where your soul meets His spirit, it never disappears. It doesn't get locked when you've been gone too long. It doesn't expire when you've grown inconsistent. It waits patiently, tenderly, faithfully. You haven't lost access, you've just lost rhythm, and rhythms can be relearned. Mother Teresa once said, "God speaks in the silence of the heart. Listening is the beginning of prayer." But how often do we actually listen anymore? We scroll, we schedule, we strive. We fill every space with voices, noise, and opinions until our own soul can't tell the difference between what's urgent and what's sacred. Yet somehow, beneath all the chatter, there's still a part of you that remembers how it felt to sit in stillness with God. That longing hasn't died. It's just buried under busyness. The good news is, God doesn't need hours to begin the work of restoration in you. He just needs a yes, a whisper, a few undistracted minutes that say, "I'm here," even if I don't know what to say yet. Matthew 6:6 reminds us of that invitation clearly. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. The emphasis isn't on location, it's on intention. Close the door, block out the noise, make space again, not because prayer is a task to check off, but because your heart was never meant to carry everything it's been carrying without rest. You don't always need a new plan. Sometimes you just need permission to return, and that permission has already been written in grace. We overcomplicate intimacy with God. We think we need to come with answers, goals, or a certain level of spiritual eloquence, but the secret place was never about that. It was always about coming empty so you could be filled. It was always about taking the armor off, the mask, the presentation, and just being a soul who needs their creator. That's hard to do in a loud world, because silence can feel intimidating. It confronts us with ourselves. But that silence is where God speaks, not through a loud announcement, but through that still small voice that reminds you you're not forgotten, you're not disqualified, you're still mine. The secret place isn't glamorous. It's not for show. No one sees it. No one claps for it. And yet, it's where your strength is rebuilt. It's where clarity comes not all at once, but steadily. It's where God reveals what's next, not in detail, but in presence. So many of us want direction, but we skip connection. We want answers, but we neglect relationship. We want peace, but we ignore the one who is peace. That's why this space matters. Because before you solve a problem, you need a person. Before you fix anything outward, you need anchoring inward. And the only place you'll find that kind of centering is in the presence of the one who made you. There's a line that sticks with me, a Chinese proverb, ancient and simple. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. The same applies to prayer. Maybe you feel like you've waited too long, that the distance is too wide, that the fire you once had has burned too low to ever light again. But God doesn't need your past to be perfect. He just wants your present to be honest. You can start again, and now is a good time. Starting again isn't about grand gestures. It's not about promising to wake up at 5 a.m. every day for the next year or vowing to pray for 2 hours straight. It's about one honest moment of return, one real conversation, one quiet pause that says, "I've been missing you." That's enough. That cracks open the door to the room you thought you lost, the one where God still waits. And yes, He's still waiting. Not with crossed arms, but with open ones. Not in anger, but in mercy. He knows where you've been. He knows what kept you away. And none of that makes him love you less. He's not just the God who sends you. He's the God who draws you. He's not just the Lord of your calling. He's the Father of your soul. When you return to the secret place, something begins to change, not in your circumstances, but in your posture. You begin to carry life differently. You stop trying to control every outcome. You stop needing everyone to understand you. You stop chasing validation from places that can never offer it, and instead, you start to anchor your worth in the one who already called you beloved. That doesn't mean everything becomes easy. It just means you don't feel as alone. You begin to recognize his nearness in the ordinary, in the breath between tasks, in the hush before the next meeting, in the quiet ride home. That's how prayer slowly becomes your environment, not just your emergency. You weren't made to pray only when life falls apart. You were made to live in ongoing conversation, to walk with God, not just visit him. But if that walk feels unfamiliar now, don't carry guilt. Just return. It's never too late. It's never too far. God doesn't measure distance the way we do. To him, a single turning of your heart is a full homecoming. Some days, all you may be able to say is, "Lord, I'm here." That's enough, because he's already been there. He was there in the pain. He was there in the drifting. He's not just with you in the sanctuary. He's been with you in the silence, in the waiting, even in the places you didn't expect him to be. That's what makes the secret place so sacred. It's not always full of emotions. Sometimes it's dry. Sometimes it's quiet. But it's still holy because he is there. And when you keep returning, you begin to notice something. Your soul grows softer. Your judgments become gentler, your reactions slower, your confidence steadier, not because you tried harder, but because you abided longer. There's a difference between visiting God and dwelling with him. The secret place is where dwelling begins, and dwelling doesn't require perfection, just presence, just consistency, just a willingness to come, even when you don't feel worthy. Let that be your daily miracle, that you are welcome, always. Even when your thoughts are a mess, even when your faith feels shaky, even when your schedule is full. You are still welcome in the quiet place of prayer, because God never bases your invitation on your performance. He bases it on his love. That love doesn't fluctuate. It doesn't shrink when you fail. It doesn't expand when you succeed. It stays steady. It holds you even when your hands are too tired to reach. And sometimes the secret place becomes the only place where that love feels real again, where it moves from theology to experience, from theory to heartbeat. Don't underestimate the impact of small moments spent with God. The world celebrates productivity. Heaven honors presence. The world shouts louder. God whispers deeper. And when you start choosing that whisper, even for a few quiet minutes a day, everything starts to change. No, not always externally, but internally. Your priorities realign, your reactions soften, your hope rekindles, not because your problems disappeared, but because your spirit remembered. You're not navigating life alone. You may never be able to eliminate chaos from your life, but you can create sacred space within it. A place that becomes your refuge, a spiritual home inside your heart where the noise dies down and the voice of your Father grows clearer. That's the secret place. Not a perfect schedule, not a flawless routine, just that sacred corner where you whisper his name and he answers, not always with words, but with presence. So make room again, not tomorrow, not once life calms down, now. The door is still open. The silence isn't empty. It's full of God. And your return has been anticipated not with judgment, but with joy. Emotion isn't weakness. It's where healing begins. Sometimes what stops us from truly praying isn't doubt, laziness, or lack of time. It's fear of feeling too much. We live in a world that trains us to stay composed, stay efficient, stay strong. But God never asked you to be impressive in His presence. He asked you to be honest. And sometimes honesty looks like tears. If you've ever found yourself swallowing the lump in your throat during prayer because you didn't want to fall apart, you're not alone. We try to keep it together, even with God. But what if the very falling apart you're afraid of is the opening through which healing enters? There's a line from the Psalms that holds such comfort when our emotions feel too heavy to name. You have kept count of my tossings, put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your record? Psalm 56:8. In the poetic language of David, we see a truth most of us long to hear. Every tear you've shed in prayer, even the silent ones, has been noticed. Not just tolerated, kept, remembered, cared for. We've often heard that prayer is strength, but we don't talk enough about how strength sometimes looks like weeping at the feet of Jesus. Like Mary in John 11, who didn't hide her heartbreak. She let it spill out in front of the only one who could hold it all. And what did Jesus do? He wept with her. God is not threatened by your emotions. He's not overwhelmed by your grief. He's not taken aback by your questions. He doesn't distance himself from your sorrow. He draws near. His nearness doesn't always remove the pain, but it transforms what pain means. It becomes the place of communion, not isolation. Yet so often we apologize when we cry in prayer, as if tears are a sign of weakness or failure. But what if they are sacred? What if they are the evidence that your heart is still alive, still soft, still open? Max Lucado once said, "Tears are God's way of melting a heart that's frozen." When you've gone numb, when you've hardened just to survive, those tears might be the beginning of renewal, not the end of strength. We tend to separate emotion and faith as if one undermines the other. But in the Gospels, Jesus never condemned emotion. He entered it. He wept over Jerusalem. He agonized in Gethsemane. He felt compassion for the crowds. He didn't present a detached model of spirituality. He presented one that bled, broke, and still trusted. So if you find yourself breaking in prayer, don't run from that. Don't shut it down. You are not malfunctioning. You are healing. You are finally letting your heart speak, the part of you that has gone unnoticed in your busyness, in your responsibilities, in your survival. There's a beautiful passage in Psalm 147:3. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. But healing only happens in the places you let Him touch. If you hide your heartbreak, He won't force your soul open. Love never coerces. But when you bring your rawness, your sadness, your confusion, your anger, and place it before Him with trembling hands, you open the door to grace. And grace does not reject what is messy. It wraps itself around it. It does not shame what is unfiltered. It says, "Thank you for trusting me with this." Grace doesn't require you to clean up your feelings first. It says, "Even this belongs." Too many of us have believed that spiritual maturity means emotional suppression, that if we cry too much, we must not have enough faith. But maturity in the Spirit is not about appearing unfazed. It's about bringing your full self, even the fragile parts, into the light of Christ. Not because it feels safe all the time, but because you believe He's safe enough to receive it. Author Henri Nouwen wrote, "We are not the healers. We are not the reconcilers. We are not the givers of life. We are sinful, broken, vulnerable people who need as much care as anyone we care for. And that care begins when we allow ourselves to feel in God's presence what we've been avoiding in our own. That's what full-hearted prayer is, not a perfect script, but a vulnerable posture. You don't come to impress. You come to expose, not to perform, but to let yourself be seen in the places that ache. And if you've ever broken down in the middle of a prayer, the kind of breakdown that doesn't make it onto social media or into journals, then you know how holy that moment can become. You realize that God isn't just with you in the triumphant praise. He's just as present in the grief, in the numbness, in the words that won't form because you're crying too hard to speak. Sometimes the most powerful declaration of trust is not, "God, I know you'll fix this." Sometimes it's, "God, I don't understand, but I'm not leaving this place." You stay, you weep, you wait. And in that stillness, something deeper begins to take root. You stop trying to be strong and start letting yourself be loved. If you've grown used to hiding your emotions, this will feel foreign at first. Vulnerability always does. But prayer was never meant to be a polished routine. It was meant to be a living conversation. And any real relationship requires honesty, not curated expressions, honest ones. The healing begins when you say what you've never said out loud. "I'm tired. I feel forgotten. I don't understand why it still hurts. I thought I trusted you, but I'm scared. I want to believe again, but I don't know how." And what meets you in that honesty is not condemnation. It's comfort, not rejection, but recognition. You'll begin to sense that the God you've been trying to hold it all together for never asked you to do that in the first place. He wanted you, not your version of strength, you. It's okay to pray from the place of unraveling. That's where a lot of real faith is formed, not on mountaintops, but in valleys. Not when everything is clear, but when all you have is the flicker of belief that somehow you're still being held. That flicker is enough. You may not have answers. You may not even have hope that things will change. But if you can sit with God and cry, if you can bring your sadness to Him instead of pushing it down, you are already beginning to heal. Because you're not carrying it alone anymore. That's what emotion does in prayer. It shifts the weight. It releases what is built up. And when you release it in God's direction, something sacred happens. You stop being the only one holding your pain. You begin to let Him carry it with you. That kind of prayer won't always look pretty, but it will be real. And that's what God is after. Real hearts, real surrender, real trust that says, even though I don't have it together, I still believe you do. And maybe that's your prayer today. Not the long version, not the polished one, just that simple surrender. God, I give you this ache. God, I don't know what's next, but I can't keep doing this alone. God, I'm letting the tears fall, and I'm asking you to meet me here. That's where He always meets you. Not at your peak, but in your need. So don't apologize for feeling deeply. Don't rush to tidy up your heart before you speak to God. Just come as you are. If all you have is emotion, bring it. Let the tears flow. Let your voice crack. Let your shoulders tremble. He is not alarmed by your humanity. He is moved by it. In fact, your most transformative prayer moments may not be the ones where you feel strongest. They may be the ones where you finally stop pretending. You don't need to know the right words. Just start with what's real. God, I'm overwhelmed. God, I miss you. God, I need you to hold me right now. That's where healing begins. Not when things get better externally, but when you realize you're not alone internally. Even if your circumstances stay the same for a while, even if the diagnosis doesn't change or the door doesn't open, if you've encountered God in your brokenness, something holy has already shifted. And that shift can change everything. So cry if you need to. Let it fall apart in His arms, and don't mistake that moment for weakness. It's the beginning of something sacred. Prayer is power, not just comfort. Prayer is often described as a place to find peace, and it is. But sometimes peace is only part of the story, because prayer doesn't just soothe your soul, it strengthens it. It's not just where you go to feel better. It's where you rise from the ground carrying a force that doesn't come from this world. It's easy to think of prayer as passive, quiet, gentle, something soft and personal. And yes, prayer can be quiet, it can be gentle, but it is never powerless. It's the opposite of passive. It's spiritual resistance. It's warfare done in silence. It's an invisible act that rearranges things in ways you can't always explain. But one day, you'll look back and realize that moment on your knees was more powerful than anything you tried to control with your hands. There's a line by Mother Angelica that stayed with me. Prayer is the mortar that holds our house together. Mortar isn't flashy. It doesn't get noticed like the bricks. But without it, everything crumbles. That's what prayer does. It holds your life in place when everything else wants to fall apart. It keeps your spirit grounded when the storm is still raging outside. And make no mistake, storms will come. Disappointments, delays, heartbreak, confusion. The winds of life are not selective. They hit the faithful and the faithless alike. But there's a difference when you've been anchored in prayer. You don't stand because you're strong. You stand because your foundation is reinforced every time you drop to your knees and whisper, "God, I still believe." Max Lucado wrote something that captures this perfectly. Our prayers may be awkward, our attempts may be feeble. But since the power of prayer is in the one who hears it, not in the one who says it, our prayers do make a difference. That truth changes everything, because it takes the pressure off you to say the perfect thing and puts the power back where it belongs, in God's hands. That means you can stop trying to impress heaven. Just speak, show up, let your weakness be seen. Prayer isn't powerful because you're eloquent. It's powerful because God is listening. Every sigh, every stammer, every silent tear, none of it is wasted. It's all gathered, all heard, all held. Sometimes we don't feel the shift immediately. We pray, and the situation doesn't change. But something else does. We do. Our posture changes. Our fear starts to lose its grip. Our soul starts to lift. We begin to walk through the same valley, but with a different spirit. That's power. And it begins in the unseen. James 5:16 says, "The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective." That verse isn't about being morally perfect. It's about being aligned, choosing righteousness as a posture of surrender. It's about standing before God with an open heart, not a spotless record. And when you do, your words carry more weight than you realize. Because when you pray, you're not just sending words into the sky. You are engaging with the God who holds all authority. You are speaking directly to the one who sees the beginning and the end. You are accessing wisdom, peace, power, and love that no system on earth can manufacture. Prayer is the language of eternity spoken into time. It's the whisper that echoes in heaven. The moment you shift your gaze upward, you are no longer at the mercy of what surrounds you. You have aligned yourself with the one who reigns over all of it. And that alignment, That decision to return again and again to the secret place is how you begin to move through life with a different strength. You're no longer trying to conquer the day in your own strength. You're inviting the Spirit to carry you through it. You may still get tired, you may still stumble, but prayer lifts your perspective. It reminds you who walks with you. It brings you back to the truth. You were never meant to carry all of this alone. That's the kind of strength prayer gives. Not always the kind that changes everything outside of you, but the kind that transforms everything within you. Suddenly, fear doesn't lead. Shame doesn't speak the loudest. Confusion doesn't keep you paralyzed. You start to walk in authority, not arrogance, in humility, not hesitation. And this power doesn't only benefit you, it begins to spill into every part of your life. You become a carrier of peace in rooms filled with chaos. You begin to speak life where others speak despair. You start praying over others without waiting for a title or permission because you know firsthand the power of a single sincere prayer. That's what makes prayer so powerful. It's transferable. What God pours into you in private begins to pour out of you in public, not as performance, but as overflow. And that overflow can change atmospheres. So when you feel powerless, pray anyway. That very feeling is the signal that it's time to plug back into the source. Don't wait until you feel strong to pray. Pray until strength begins to rise. Speak even when your voice shakes. Stand even when your knees feel weak. The power isn't in how loud your words are. It's in the fact that heaven hears them. Some of the most powerful prayers don't sound like declarations. They sound like desperation. God, I can't keep going. Lord, show me what to do. Jesus, please hold me together today. These aren't the kind of prayers that make headlines, but they make heaven move. Because God doesn't respond to hype, He responds to hunger. And the hungry soul that prays with honesty, even in weakness, will be met with power. So if you've been praying and nothing seems to be changing, let me encourage you. Not all power is visible. Not all breakthroughs are dramatic. Some of the greatest acts of power are quiet. Decisions. You chose not to give up. You chose to love again. You chose to stay faithful when no one else noticed. And prayer was the fuel behind every one of those decisions. Maybe no one saw your midnight prayers. Maybe no one knows how hard it was to keep believing, but heaven does. Your consistency hasn't gone unnoticed. Your whispered amen carries the same weight as someone else's shouted sermon, because what matters isn't the volume, but the surrender behind it. Don't let the enemy convince you that prayer is passive. It's defiant. It's you refusing to let darkness win. It's you saying, even if I feel weak, I still know who holds power. That's why prayer shakes things in the spirit, even when nothing looks different in the natural. And it's why the enemy will always try to distract you from it. Because he knows what happens when a person gets serious about prayer. Chains break, perspective shifts, cycles end, identity is restored, purpose is awakened. And all of that begins not when you shout louder, but when you return to the quiet place and say, God, speak, I'm listening. Prayer opens your ears to hear what you've been too tired or too afraid to hear. You're still called. You're not disqualified. I'm still writing your story. I will strengthen you. I will go before you. I am with you always. And when you hear that, really hear it, you begin to live differently. You begin to carry peace into chaos, faith into fatigue, confidence into confusion, not because you have all the answers, but because you know the one who does. That's why you keep praying. Not to earn God's attention, you already have it. You pray because it keeps your heart aligned with truth. Because it's hard to lie to yourself when you're being honest with God. Because in His presence, your fears start to shrink, your wounds start to heal, your clarity begins to return. That's not comfort alone, that's power. You won't always see immediate results, but prayer is never wasted. It works slowly, silently, sometimes invisibly, but always effectively. Like water shaping a rock, like light cracking through darkness, like roots growing underground, deep, unseen, but strong enough to hold you through anything. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, all I can do is pray, correct yourself. You're not doing the least. You're doing the most powerful thing you can possibly do. You're surrendering control while holding on to hope. You're placing your life back in the hands of the one who can move mountains with a word. And even if you only have one sentence to say, let it be this: God, fill me with the power I don't have today. That one prayer might shift more than you can see. Make room in your morning. God wants first, not leftover. Mornings have a voice. Before the day speaks loud with tasks, expectations, distractions, and movement, there is a window, a sacred moment that belongs to no one else yet. It hasn't been pulled in 100 directions. It hasn't been influenced by comparison, productivity, or the chaos of the world. It's quiet, open, unclaimed. That moment, the beginning of your day, has the power to set the rhythm for everything that follows. And yet, how often do we surrender that first space to lesser things? The scroll, the news, the email, the anxiety, the rush. We say we don't have time to pray, but often what we really don't have is order. What we really need isn't more hours, it's more intention. Matthew 6:33 brings this into focus. Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. First, not eventually, not if there's time. First, God isn't looking to be fit into your leftovers. He's inviting you to start with Him, not because He demands your time like a boss with a deadline, but because He knows what your soul needs most. And He knows how fragile the rest of your day can be without spiritual grounding. When you make room for God in the morning, something shifts. Not because the skies part or the room glows, but because your heart finds its center before the world has a chance to pull it away. John C. Maxwell once wrote, "You will never change your life until you change something you do daily." And for many of us, the most transformative shift we can make isn't adding more. It's surrendering earlier, before the problems speak. Before the pressure builds, before your identity gets hijacked by performance or people-pleasing. Starting your day with prayer isn't about spiritual heroism, it's about spiritual survival. You've already seen what happens when you try to carry everything without checking in with heaven first. You felt the overwhelm, the discouragement, the fog. But when you begin with God, even if it's only for 5 undistracted minutes, the difference is real. You walk into the day slower in spirit, but stronger in soul. You speak more gently. You listen more attentively. You decide more wisely. You're not just reacting, you're responding. Because your heart has already been aligned with the voice that knows where you're headed. But this isn't about legalism. It's not about measuring how long you prayed or keeping a religious scoreboard. It's about posture. It's about returning to the secret place before the day has a chance to crowd it out. Think of it like meeting with a mentor before facing a challenge. You walk in frazzled, unsure, stretched thin. But 10 minutes with someone wise, steady, and grounded, and everything inside you shifts. That's what your mornings can become with God. Not just a routine, but refuge. Not just obligation, but oxygen. Martin Luther once said, "I have so much to do that I shall spend the first 3 hours in prayer." That might sound extreme in our modern pace, but the heart behind it is this. I can't afford to move without first aligning. I can't afford to run if I haven't been refilled. And you don't need 3 hours. You need presence. You need honesty. You need to say, God, before this world gets a hold of me today, hold me first. That one line can be a lifeline. Start small. Don't aim for perfect mornings. Aim for consistent encounters. Keep your Bible near your bed. Turn on worship music as you make your coffee. Open your hands before the sunlight touches your face and simply say, I'm yours today. Shape me before the world tries to. That's prayer. That's transformation. You'll be tempted to skip it. Your phone will buzz, the dishes will call, your brain will race, but that's when you lean in more. Because the resistance proves how much this moment matters. If it didn't matter, there wouldn't be so many distractions trying to keep you from it. The more you protect your mornings, the more your life begins to change. Not always in dramatic ways, but in the daily shaping of your mind, your choices, your peace. You'll notice you carry less fear. Not because life got easier, but because your first conversation was with the one who isn't shaken. You'll stop walking into rooms needing to prove something because your identity was already confirmed in the quiet place. You'll lead with clarity, not confusion. Because your first appointment wasn't with the world, but with wisdom. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more fully who God made you to be. And that happens when you give him the first part of your day, when you hand him the raw, unfiltered version of yourself before you get dressed, before you smile for the world, before you become who others expect. That version, sleepy, scattered, unpolished, is often the most sincere. And God meets you there with no expectations, no performance metrics, no script, just love, just truth, just presence. You may not always feel goosebumps, but faith isn't built on feelings. It's built on rhythm, on choosing to show up again and again and again. And one morning, you'll realize something. You no longer start your day looking for strength. You start it from strength because you've learned where to go first, and everything else flows from that choice. So if you've been wondering when to begin again, let it be tomorrow morning. Don't wait until you're inspired. Don't wait until you feel spiritual. Just start. Let your alarm be the bell that calls your soul home again. Before the phone, before the tasks, before the opinions, give God your first. He'll give you more than enough for the rest. And remember this, you don't need a perfect prayer life. You just need a present heart. Speak to him before the day starts speaking to you. Start your morning with all your heart and watch how everything begins to change.
Grace is not a one-time rescue. It's the steady hand that lifts you again and again, every morning.
You don't have to hear the birds singing or see sunlight pouring through your window to know the morning has arrived. Sometimes the only sign that it's a new day is the quiet beating of your heart and the truth that God did not let go of you in the night. Grace has this gentle habit of returning to us before we ask, before we believe we deserve it, before we even remember how much we need it. It's not just a clean slate, it's a quiet invitation. Start again. Not because yesterday disappeared, but because mercy decided that your story wasn't finished. And if you're waking up to a world that feels too heavy or a heart that feels too tired, maybe today isn't asking you to be extraordinary. Maybe today is only asking you to receive what's already been given, mercy that meets you right where you are and refuses to leave you there. You woke up. That's proof. God hasn't given up. Before you even move, before your body finds its way to the edge of the bed, or your thoughts gather into something coherent, something divine has already happened. God whispered yes over you again. He said, live. Not because you earned it, not because yesterday was perfect, not because everything is in order, but because His mercy is unshakable and His faithfulness isn't based on your performance. The truth we often forget is tucked right in the rhythm of breath. You're not the one keeping yourself alive. You didn't wake up because you deserved another chance. You woke up because God decided to give it. And that means this day, however messy or ordinary or uncertain it may look, is laced with a purpose that is deeper than your circumstances and stronger than your doubts. Lamentations reminds us of something radical. His mercies are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. It doesn't say new every once in a while, or only when you've done everything right. It says every morning, every. That includes the mornings you don't feel grateful, the mornings your body aches, the mornings you question everything. Even then, especially then, His mercy arrives like dew on dry ground, quiet, unseen, but life-giving. You don't have to fake a good mood to be worthy of this day. You don't have to feel strong to be given strength. You don't have to earn grace. It's already waiting. Anne Voskamp once wrote, "You do not have to earn a new beginning, only receive it." There's something deeply liberating about that. You're not behind. You're not too late. You're not beyond repair. Today is proof. Let your first act of faith be this. Let go of the need to do something spectacular just to justify your existence. Your breath already justified that. God already did. The world will try to convince you that you have to hustle your way into worthiness, that you need to show evidence before you can claim peace. But grace doesn't work that way. Grace meets you before the evidence shows up. Grace arrives when the room is still dark and your thoughts are still foggy and says, even now, you're held. Jerry Bridges said it best. Our worst days are never so bad that we are beyond the reach of God's grace. And that includes the days when you wake up carrying regret. The mornings when your first thought is of what you didn't do yesterday, or the thing you wish you hadn't said, or the way you feel like you failed someone or yourself. Even on those mornings, God is not shaking His head. He's not tallying up your shortcomings. He's still reaching, still restoring. So take a slow breath, not because it fixes everything, but because it reminds you that you're still alive and mercy still stands. You haven't missed your chance. You haven't outrun your hope. The fact that you're here, reading this, listening to this, breathing right now, means that God still sees something in you worth fighting for. You might be thinking, but I feel so far from who I used to be. Or maybe, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. That's okay. You're not the one holding it all together. You're not the one responsible for stitching back the broken pieces on your own. You're allowed to be the one who receives the healing instead of always being the one who provides it. Let this morning be different. Not because your life is suddenly easier or your struggles have disappeared, but because you are finally seeing the sacred in the ordinary fact of waking up. You are here. God is here. And that is enough to begin. So if your mind is already jumping ahead to a dozen tasks, to the pressures waiting for you, to the uncertainty that shadows your future, pause. Look at what's right in front of you. You woke up, and that's not a small thing. That's not just biology or luck. That is divine mercy reaching into time and space and choosing you again. If you've ever wondered whether God still wants to use you, whether your story is still valid, whether your pain disqualifies you, then let this morning be your answer. He hasn't walked away. He hasn't run out of grace. In fact, he's just getting started with you. Let your identity today rest not on what you do, but on what's already been done. Let your value be rooted not in how others see you, but in how He has already loved you, completely, endlessly, and without condition. You don't need to prove anything to step into the grace that's been freely given. Maybe you've been feeling overwhelmed, not just by tasks, but by the weight of being human. Maybe your soul has grown tired from carrying emotions you don't know how to name, expectations you didn't ask for, and roles you never got to prepare for. You're not weak for feeling this way. You're not broken for waking up exhausted. You're just in need of mercy, and it's already here. Don't let shame talk you out of receiving what God is trying to give. Don't let your inner critic become louder than the still, loving voice of God. If today is a beginning, then let it be one that starts not with pressure, but with peace. So what does this mean practically? It means when your alarm goes off and the flood of doubt tries to follow, you answer with this: I have not been abandoned. I have not been overlooked. I have not been disqualified. I have breath in my lungs and mercy in my corner, and that is enough to begin. It also means allowing yourself the grace to not have it all figured out today. You don't need a 5-year plan to be faithful. You just need a willing heart and a steady step. God isn't waiting for you at the finish line with arms crossed. He's walking with you in the in-between, in the unnoticed, in the fragile places where you're still learning how to hope again. The next time you question your worth, your calling, or your capacity, remember this: you didn't earn this morning, you were gifted it, and that gift is not random. You are still alive because there is still light to bring, still love to give, still purpose to live out, even if it's not loud or glamorous or clear right now. There's something holy in the simple. Waking up, taking the next step, choosing not to give up, that's sacred ground. And while the world might never applaud you for making your bed or whispering a prayer through tears or choosing to forgive one more time, heaven sees it. Heaven rejoices in it. If all you do today is choose not to quit, that's enough. If all you can manage is getting out of bed, whispering, "Help me, God," and putting one foot in front of the other, that counts. That matters. That is seen. Maybe no one else will notice the victory in your rising, but God does. So let's go back to that simple truth. His mercies are new every morning. That includes today, this very hour, this very minute. You don't need to prepare yourself to deserve it. You just need to let yourself receive it. Whatever yesterday took from you, today is not your enemy, it's your opportunity. Whatever guilt tried to drag into your new day, it's not welcome anymore. Whatever voices tried to convince you that you failed too much, they don't get the final say. Grace does. Mercy does. God does. You don't need to carry the whole weight of the day. Just walk with the one who's already carrying you. His faithfulness is greater than your fear. His love is deeper than your disappointment. And His mercy, it's new. Again. Right now. Let this be the declaration in your heart today. Not shouted from a rooftop, but whispered from your soul. I am here because He wants me here. I am breathing because He's not done with me. I am moving forward, not because I'm strong, but because His mercy is. Every time you forget, come back to this. You woke up. And that is enough proof that God hasn't given up. When you can't reset your life, reset your next step. Sometimes the greatest weight on a soul isn't what happened. It's the fear that nothing will ever change. You wake up and the ache feels just as heavy as yesterday. The same doubts circle your mind. The same responsibilities pile up before you even make it to the kitchen. and you wonder quietly, how do I move forward when nothing inside me feels new? The truth most people won't say out loud is this. Some mornings don't feel like fresh starts. They feel like leftovers from all the things that didn't get resolved the day before, and that's exactly why mercy matters. Because mercy isn't asking you to reset your whole life today. It's just inviting you to take one faithful step in the right direction. It might not look heroic, it might not feel life-altering, but small obedience in hard seasons is how strength is built. Arthur Ashe once said, "Start where you are. Use what you have, do what you can. Not where you wish you were, not where someone else is. Just here, just now, with what's in your hands." Some days the next step might be forgiveness. Other days it might be getting dressed when everything in you wants to stay hidden. Some mornings it's choosing not to go back to the thing that numbed you but never healed you. The step will look different for each of us, but mercy doesn't need a spectacle. It just needs your yes. If you've been feeling overwhelmed by everything that needs fixing, it's okay to scale it all the way down to the next right thing, not your whole life, just your next moment. The mercy of God is not an excuse to stay stuck. It's the strength to move forward. You don't need a 5-year plan when you're healing. You need one faithful step that says, "God, I'm still willing to try." The world celebrates big milestones, but heaven celebrates quiet courage, the kind that doesn't post online, the kind that no one claps for, the kind that happens when you get up anyway, show up anyway, love anyway. When the finish line feels miles away, trust that you're still running the right race. The road isn't holy because it's easy. It's holy because He's on it with you. That's the beauty of God's mercy. It meets you in motion. You don't need to have momentum. You don't need to feel confident. You just need to move. Proverbs reminds us that the righteous fall 7 times and rise again. That means falling isn't failure. It's just part of walking. Maybe today is not about changing everything, but choosing not to give up on what still matters. Maybe it's about returning to the thing you once believed in, the version of you that once had fire in your heart before disappointment dimmed it. Maybe your next step is simply remembering what God said last and doing that again, even if it feels small, especially if it feels small. Small is never meaningless in God's hands. Sometimes the lie we believe is this: if I can't do it all, I shouldn't do anything at all. That's not faith. That's fire disguised as perfectionism. Mercy invites you to trade perfection for progress and shame for starting again. God is not holding a clipboard tracking your performance. He's holding out His hand saying, "Walk with me." Let's take today together. It's okay if your healing is quiet. It's okay if your progress isn't visible to others yet. Not every battle is fought out loud. Many of them are internal. And every time you choose not to collapse into despair, you're choosing to hope again. And hope, in the quiet morning light, is the loudest form of resistance to fear. You don't have to wait until you feel like it to act on what you know is right. Motivation may come and go, but mercy, it's always steady, always faithful. You don't have to feel strong to take a strong step. You just have to believe that God will meet you where your foot lands. If today feels heavy, it doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Even Jesus had days where the weight of the mission caused Him to withdraw and pray alone. So why are you judging yourself for not being over it yet? Healing takes time. Growth takes silence. And God is not in a hurry with your soul. There's power in doing the next thing with God, even when it feels painfully slow. He's never measured your worth by your speed. He's never withheld his grace because your pace wasn't impressive. And he will never shame you into progress. That's not who he is. That's not what mercy does. So what does your next step look like today? Maybe it's pausing to pray before reacting. Maybe it's choosing to eat something nourishing even when your mind says you don't deserve to. Maybe it's sending that message of reconciliation or writing a dream down again after you swore you'd let it go. Maybe it's asking for help, saying no, saying yes. Speaking kindly to yourself when the old pattern of criticism starts creeping in. Whatever it is, remember this: God doesn't need you to prove anything. He simply asks that you keep walking. When it's too overwhelming to imagine your whole future, just imagine one decision. When your heart trembles beneath the pressure to have it all figured out, ground yourself in the present and whisper just one faithful step. The enemy would love to convince you that unless it's loud and visible and polished, it's not progress. But Jesus never once rushed to perform. He moved at the pace of love. He healed in obscurity. He walked among crowds without striving to impress. And if the Son of God didn't measure worth by applause, neither should you. The same Spirit that raised him is the one that lives in you now. That Spirit strengthens you to take the next step, not to be a hero, but to be faithful. And faithfulness is not something you perform. It's something you live into one moment at a time. Sometimes mercy looks like silence where there should have been anger. Sometimes it looks like wiping your tears and trying again. Sometimes it's refusing to harden your heart just because things didn't go as planned. You don't have to restart your whole life to be changed by this moment. There is no such thing as a wasted step when it's directed by grace. Maybe you've walked in circles. Maybe you've taken detours. Maybe you're starting again for the 100th time. God isn't tired of you. He's still walking with you, still whispering, keep going. I'm right here. You're not walking alone. And you're not walking backward just because the path feels unfamiliar. Every time you choose to do the next right thing, even when it doesn't fix everything, you're moving in the direction of healing. Every time you choose gentleness over judgment, truth over fear, faith over doubt, you are choosing the kind of strength that lasts. That kind of strength isn't built in stadiums. It's built in kitchens, bedrooms, quiet cars, and long walks. It's built in unseen places where you choose what's right instead of what's easy, and it matters. It matters more than you know. Let this be the reminder your soul needs. You don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to say yes to the next faithful step. You're not expected to climb the whole mountain today. You're only asked to take one step toward it. And the same God who meets you in the valley will be the one who walks with you to the summit, however long it takes. If you've ever wondered whether the little decisions matter, hear this clearly. They do. Faithfulness is built in the unseen, and mercy is what gives you the power to keep choosing faithfulness. Let's put aside the pressure to be extraordinary. Let's walk in the beauty of being consistent. And if anyone ever told you that starting small isn't spiritual, they didn't understand the kingdom of God. Jesus said the kingdom is like a mustard seed, tiny, often unnoticed, but full of power when rooted in faith. Let your step today be a mustard seed. Let it be planted deep in trust. It may look like nothing now, but heaven sees, and heaven multiplies. This morning is not wasted. Your life is not stuck. Your hope is not misplaced. Mercy is moving. You can move with it. And even if you can't run, even if you can't leap, you can still walk. That's enough. That's more than enough. Because when you walk with God, every step is sacred. Shame doesn't get the final word. God's mercy does. There are moments quiet but heavy when the soul doesn't just feel tired, it feels unworthy, not just worn down by life, but weighed down by shame. It creeps in slowly, disguising itself as memory, regret, self-awareness. It whispers reminders of past failures and tells you you're disqualified from hope. But shame is a liar. And the mercy of God has always spoken louder. You weren't created to carry what Jesus already died to remove. You weren't designed to wake up every day reliving your lowest moments. That's not holiness. That's captivity. Mercy is what frees you. It's not naive. It sees the truth of your flaws and loves you in the very center of them. Mercy doesn't deny your past. It just refuses to let it define your present. Corrie ten Boom once said, "There is no pit so deep that God's love is not deeper still." And if that's true, and it is, then no place you fall into is beyond the reach of grace. You don't have to rehearse your mistakes before you pray. You don't need to punish yourself emotionally before you're allowed to feel loved again. That's not how mercy works. That's how shame tricks you. Let's be honest, shame doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it just shows up as hesitation. You don't raise your hand. You don't try again. You lower your expectations. You stop dreaming. You become small, not in humility, but in fear. But God is not calling you to shrink. He's calling you to heal. There's a difference between conviction and condemnation. Conviction calls you forward. Condemnation keeps you stuck. Conviction says you were made for more. Condemnation says you'll never be enough. Only one of those voices comes from the Father. In 1 John 1:9, we're reminded, if we confess our sins, He is faithful and just to forgive us and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Not just some, all. That means God isn't just forgiving your sins. He's cleaning out the shame they tried to leave behind. He's not handing you a second chance with strings attached. He's handing you a new beginning sealed in love. Some people walk through life feeling like they need to constantly apologize for existing. They expect rejection before it happens. They prepare for disappointment even in moments of joy. That's not because they're dramatic. It's because shame has taught them to anticipate pain as their default. But the cross changed the default setting. Now, instead of shame being your home, grace is. You are not your lowest decision. You are not the chapter you wish never happened. You are not the mistakes that haunt your memory when the night goes quiet. You are the person Jesus saw when He said, "You're worth dying for." Louis Giglio once put it this way, "You are not defined by what you've done. You're defined by what Christ has done for you." That changes everything. You're not a project trying to fix itself. You're a soul already claimed, already covered, already known. But shame doesn't disappear just because you know that in your mind. It often lingers in the heart, in the way you react, in the way you speak to yourself, in the way you flinch when someone gets too close to the real you. That's why mercy isn't a one-time declaration. It's a daily decision to believe the truth over the lies. It takes courage to unlearn shame, to stop measuring your worth by your achievements or your failures, to stop apologizing for being human. But that courage is found in Christ, not in trying harder to be perfect. When Jesus encountered the woman caught in adultery, He didn't lecture her. He didn't shame her in front of the crowd. He stooped down, met her at eye level, and dismissed every accusation. "Neither do I condemn you," He said. That's not just a historical moment. That's your moment too. Whatever accusations are following you, whether they're from others or from your own mind, Jesus still says the same thing today. I don't condemn you. He doesn't excuse sin, but He doesn't reduce you to it either. He knows your story. He knows what led you there. And he came not to shame you, but to save you. You don't need to be afraid of your own story anymore. There's power in naming the things you've been afraid to say out loud. Not to dwell in them, but to strip them of their secrecy. Mercy thrives in the light. Shame thrives in the dark. The moment you let God into those hidden places, they begin to lose their power over you. You've been forgiven. That's not a someday hope. That's a present reality. That's why you're free to live differently, not in fear, but in faith, not in hiding, but in honesty. And if the old voices still try to follow you into your new day, let them know they don't get the final word anymore. God does. And His word over you is love. It's not just poetic, it's practical. Because when you live from a place of mercy, everything changes. You start approaching people with more compassion. You start pursuing your dreams without apology. You stop punishing yourself in subtle ways. You stop waiting for perfection and start walking in progress. And maybe that's the greatest act of faith today. Not praying louder or reading more or working harder, but simply choosing to stop agreeing with shame. You were made to reflect the love of a God who doesn't flinch at your wounds. A God who heals the broken, restores the fallen, and welcomes the weary. There's no formula for this healing, but there is a promise. Psalm 51:17 says, "A broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise." If all you have to offer today is a heart that's still hurting, He won't turn you away. In fact, He draws even closer. Don't wait until you feel worthy. You won't. That's the trap shame sets. It tells you that someday you'll earn the right to be loved. But love doesn't wait for you to qualify. It just comes, it just covers, it just heals. Mercy says, you are not what happened to you. You are not your relapse. You are not the time you lashed out. You are not the version of you that crumbled under pressure. You are more than the memory of your worst moment. You are a child of God, held by grace, carried by compassion, and still called for a purpose. And the moment you stop running from God and start running to Him, shame loses its grip. Because you're no longer letting your past dictate your identity. You're letting Jesus do that instead. If today you feel like an imposter in your own skin, like someone pretending to be whole while carrying pieces inside, pause. Remember this. Healing doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means trusting that God can redeem even what was broken. You're not behind schedule. You're not too late. You're not too far gone. You are right on time for the mercy that was always meant for you. The next time shame says, "You'll never be enough," you can answer back, "I already am in Christ." The next time regret says, "You should have known better," you can answer, "God knew, and He still chose me." The next time fear says, "What if they find out who you really are?" you can whisper, "God already knows, and He stays." This is the life mercy offers. One where grace is stronger than guilt. One where restoration is louder than rejection. One where the cross gets the final word, not your past. And maybe you've heard all of this before, but today it needs to land deeper, not just as inspiration, but as transformation. Let these words not just pass through your mind. Let them settle in your soul. Let them confront the lies. Let them renew what shame tried to steal. You're not disqualified. You're not forgotten. You're not being punished. You're being pursued by a love that doesn't quit. So today, don't let shame be your compass. Let mercy be your direction. Let love be your rhythm. Let grace be your grounding. The old version of you doesn't get to decide who you are anymore. You're not what you did. You're what He's doing in you now. You're not stuck. You're being reshaped. You're not damaged goods. You're a work of redemption in progress. Mercy doesn't ask you to forget your past. It simply gives you the strength to live like it's no longer your identity. So walk forward, not with your head down, but with your heart open. Walk knowing that the voice of shame will grow quieter the more you believe the truth of God's love. Walk knowing that mercy is new today. Not because you earned it, but because that's who God is. And if you still hear the echoes of your old self chasing you, turn around and remind them, God gets the final word, and He says, I'm free. God's mercy doesn't depend on how you feel. Some days you wake up and it feels like the sky is clearer, your breath is deeper, your thoughts a little lighter. Other days, nothing is different on the outside, but everything feels heavier on the inside. The weight isn't visible, but it's real, and it follows you from the moment your eyes open. On those mornings, it's tempting to ask, where is God's mercy now? Because if mercy were really here, wouldn't I feel it? But mercy doesn't ask you to feel it. It simply asks you to believe it's still there, because it is. Emotions are important, but they are not ultimate. They shift with the weather of your soul. They rise and fall with memory, hormones, sleep, conversation, silence, disappointment, and surprise. But God's mercy doesn't move. It doesn't dim when your joy fades. It doesn't back away when your hope flickers. It stands steady no matter how unstable everything else seems. Charles Stanley once reminded us of this simple truth. We live by faith, not by feelings. That's not just a statement to sound strong, it's a survival strategy. Because if you base your faith on how you feel, you'll start to believe that God's love comes and goes. But mercy isn't moody. It doesn't arrive in emotional packaging, it arrives in promise. Even when you wake up numb or restless or sad without reason, God is still near. Even when you can't articulate what's wrong, His compassion hasn't lessened. When your prayers feel like echoes and worship feels like going through the motions, mercy hasn't left the room. It's still sitting beside you, still waiting, still holding space for you to come as you are. There's a strange kind of courage in showing up when your emotions are quiet. It's the courage of faith, walking when you can't see, speaking truth when you don't feel it, choosing presence when it would be easier to withdraw. And that courage isn't something you manufacture on your own. It's given. It's grown in the soil of grace. 2 Timothy 2:13 says it with piercing comfort. Even when we are faithless, He remains faithful. God's faithfulness is not reactive. It's not based on your consistency. It's not tied to how passionate you are or how strong your devotional life looks this week. It's tied to who He is. There is relief in that. Real, healing relief. Because we don't always wake up feeling chosen. We don't always get up feeling whole. Sometimes the weight of yesterday or the worries of what's ahead numb the parts of us that used to feel more alive, and we start wondering if something's broken. But maybe nothing is broken. Maybe you're just in a valley, and God doesn't disappear in valleys. He leads people through them. Your feelings are not wrong. They're just not the final authority. They can point to needs. They can reflect your condition, but they don't define your relationship with God. You are not farther from Him just because you feel distant. You are not out of step just because you can't cry during worship like you used to. Spiritual intimacy isn't measured by emotional surges. It's measured by trust. Quiet, steady trust. Lisa TerKeurst once wrote, "Emotions are indicators, not dictators." That means they can guide us to reflection, but they shouldn't guide our decisions about God's character. His love doesn't fluctuate with our moods. His grace doesn't reduce when our faith feels thin. His mercy doesn't pause when we hit emotional silence. So if you've been waking up feeling disconnected or spiritually dull, don't assume you've drifted beyond reach. Don't let your internal fog convince you that God has changed his mind about you. Mercy doesn't need you to feel it in order to function. It simply exists, ready to catch you, steady you, hold you, lift you. You're not doing something wrong because you feel off. You're not less spiritual because the spark feels dim. You're not failing at faith because your heart feels flat. What you're experiencing is part of being human. What mercy offers is divine consistency inside that human fragility. Think of it like this. If God's mercy depended on you feeling strong, it wouldn't be mercy, it would be reward. But it's not. Mercy shows up when strength runs out. It meets you not at your best, but at your most honest. You're allowed to bring God the version of you that isn't glowing, and you don't need to wait until your emotions shift to begin your day with Him. You don't need to fake joy. You don't need to force peace. Just come. Come with your blankness. Come with your questions. Come with the quiet weight you can't name. He is already there, and He doesn't need you to perform something emotional to believe you mean it. The intimacy you long for might not be in the feelings. It might be in the showing up. God delights in your decision to stay, to trust, to speak, even when it's hard, even when you whisper instead of shout, even when all you can do is sit in the stillness and say, I don't feel much, but I still believe you're good. That's what trust looks like. That's what faith breathes like when emotion is quiet. So many have been taught to equate spiritual connection with emotional highs. But if Jesus only walked with us in the highs, the cross would have never happened. He stepped into the depth of sorrow, into the silence of abandonment, into the agony of human weight. And He didn't flinch. He still chose us. He still chooses us. And when you wake up feeling off, your job is not to chase a better mood. Your job is simply to turn your face back toward Him, even if the clouds don't lift right away, even if the words don't come easily, even if all you can do is sit quietly and say, Lord, I'm still here. That is not nothing. That is sacred. That is how intimacy deepens. Sometimes the most honest prayer is one that begins, God, I don't know what to say today. Sometimes the most powerful worship is a whispered thank you through tears. Sometimes the most healing moment is realizing that your faith didn't vanish, it just quieted. Mercy is not here to demand a performance. It's here to draw you back to the truth that God is not as fragile as your emotions. He doesn't disappear when your feelings do. He is not panicking when your heart feels dull. He is still Emmanuel, God with us. Feelings can be helpful companions, but they are poor leaders. They change too easily. One memory, one disappointment, one sleepless night, and suddenly you're questioning things you once knew deeply. But God hasn't changed. His promise hasn't changed. His plan hasn't been canceled. Matthew 5:16 reminds us, let your light shine before others. But some days, that light isn't fireworks. It's a flickering candle. It's a small glow that says, I'm still believing, even if I don't feel like I'm shining. God sees that light. He honors that light, and He increases that light. You might not feel mercy this morning, but it's here. You might not feel peace, but it's coming. You might not feel clarity, but trust is still possible in the haze. Let yourself be held even when you don't feel held. That's the invitation of this part of the journey, not to force a feeling, but to receive a presence. Not to manufacture emotion, but to live into the reality that you're not alone. Not today, not ever. And if all you do today is show up with your eyes half open and your heart half sure, it's still enough. If all you can offer is your availability, offer it. If all you can say is, "I'm tired, but I'm here," say it. God doesn't require your emotional clarity to pour out His love. You're still being carried, even in your numbness, still being led, even in your fog, still being covered, even in your confusion. And this holy steadiness is mercy. You don't have to climb out of this mood before you belong again. You don't have to get back to normal to be valuable again. God is not waiting at the top of the mountain of motivation. He's walking with you at the base of exhaustion. So take the next quiet step. Brush your teeth, say a small prayer, drink water, speak one word of truth aloud. God is still with me. You might not feel the heavens shake. You might not feel any different afterward, but you're standing in truth. And truth, lived in small ways, is more powerful than emotion. Let your soul breathe without pressure today. Let your thoughts pass by without judgment. Let your morning unfold slowly, without demanding joy to arrive on schedule. And if nothing else, remember this: the mercy of God is not less true when you don't feel it. It's just as near. It's just as faithful. It's just as ready to carry you through this moment into the next one. One quiet decision at a time. One breath at a time. One small, unseen act of trust at a time. Because that's how mercy moves, with you, not behind you, not above you, but right beside you, exactly where you are. New mercy, new mission. Live today with purpose. Waking up with mercy is a miracle, but living with purpose, that's the response. Mercy is not just a soft blanket of comfort for the weary. It is also a divine nudge, a quiet charge, a gentle hand pointing forward. When God gives you a new morning, He's not just handing you a breath. He's handing you a reason. This doesn't mean every day has to be remarkable by the world's standards. It doesn't mean you have to build an empire or shout your calling from a rooftop. But it does mean that your existence today is not random. It means the mercy you woke up with is not just for surviving, it's also for serving, growing, contributing. It's for stepping into the quiet mission that your life carries, even when you're not sure where it's headed. Some people believe they're only useful to God when they feel spiritually strong or emotionally stable. But Jesus entrusted His message to people who were often unsure, often afraid, often overlooked. He didn't wait for them to have perfect resumes. He gave them a calling and then walked with them through the process. You're not an exception to that. You don't need to wait for clarity to live with conviction. You don't need to wait for everything to be in order before offering what's in your hands. Today is sacred because God woke you up in it. That alone makes it enough. In Matthew 5:16, Jesus reminds us to let your light shine before others. But lights don't need to be massive to be meaningful. Even a small flame can guide a traveler home in the dark, and some people in your life are just looking for someone to show them what grace looks like with skin on. You don't need a microphone to carry God's mercy. You just need to show up with your heart open, in your family, at your job, with your neighbors, at the grocery store, in your texts, in your tone, in your decisions to forgive, to speak life, to listen when no one else does. Christine Kane once wrote, "You were saved not just from something, but for something." You weren't rescued by mercy just to sit in silence. You were rescued so that you could become a vessel of that same mercy for someone else. And that begins not with a grand announcement, but with small, intentional choices. What would happen if you started your day not by asking, "What do I have to do today?" but instead, "Who can I love today? How can I reflect what I've received?" You've been given something eternal in a temporary world. You've been trusted with compassion in a culture obsessed with judgment. You've been given light not to hide it, but to let it leak into every space you enter. This doesn't mean exhausting yourself. It means aligning yourself, asking God to show you where your presence matters today, and then walking into that with courage, even if no one claps, even if it goes unseen, even if it feels too ordinary to count. It counts. Heaven sees. You don't need to go viral to be valuable. You don't need to fix everything to be faithful. You just need to take what mercy gave you this morning and give it legs. This might mean making the phone call you've been putting off, or writing the email with honesty, or starting the thing you've delayed out of fear. It might mean sitting quietly with a child who doesn't yet have words for their emotions, or forgiving someone who never asked, or standing up for truth, even if your voice shakes. It might also mean resting. Yes, resting. Sometimes obedience means laying down the productivity obsession and trusting that your worth is not tied to output. Sometimes the most purposeful thing you can do is to heal, to be still, to recover what got lost inside you. Don't confuse stillness with stagnation. Some of the most powerful spiritual movements begin in quiet surrender, not action, not noise. Just a heart that says, "Here I am, Lord, use this day." Mercy does not demand performance, but it does invite participation. God could work without us, but He chooses to work through us. That means your ordinary life is a delivery system for heaven's love. You may never know the full impact of one kind decision, one act of patience, one moment of integrity. But God knows, and He weaves those moments into things eternal. If you've ever questioned whether your small acts matter, remember this: you are part of a story much bigger than you can see. And when mercy touched your life, it wasn't just for your comfort, it was for your calling. The world is heavy. People are tired. Compassion is rare. Encouragement is undervalued. But you, woken by mercy, are now a light bearer in that world, not by striving, but by living awake. Every interaction is a chance to reflect something different. Something not reactive, not bitter, not rushed, but rooted. The truth is, there's a hunger in the world for people who live like they know they're loved. For people who don't walk in fear. For people who can forgive because they know how much they've been forgiven. For people who stop waiting to be noticed and instead start noticing others. That can be you. That already is you. You're here because God decided you were still needed. You're breathing because your presence still carries purpose. You're not waiting for permission. You've already been commissioned. You don't have to feel qualified. You've been called. You're not too young, not too old, not too late. You're right on time for today's assignment. And if the assignment feels unclear, just start with mercy. What has God given you freely today? Peace, grace, patience, strength? Now offer that. Offer it to the difficult coworker, to the confused teenager, to the discouraged friend, to the anxious parent, to the stranger who's forgotten how to smile. Let what God has placed in you become a refuge for others. Because this is how heaven spreads. Not just in church buildings, but in living rooms, on sidewalks, in phone calls, in honest conversations. Through people like you, imperfect, in progress, but filled with a mercy that never runs dry. Every morning that mercy touches you, it's not just to comfort you, it's to send you. So don't overthink today. Don't aim for impressive. Aim for faithful. Show up. Stay soft-hearted. Keep your eyes open. And if you fall short, remember, tomorrow's mercy is already on the way. You're not doing this alone. You never were. You've made it to the end of this message, and maybe there's still a part of you wondering if any of this really applies to your situation. Maybe shame still echoes or fear still trembles in the background. Maybe your emotions haven't caught up to the truth yet. That's okay, because truth doesn't wait for your feelings to agree. It stands steady regardless. And the truth is this: you woke up with mercy today. That alone is proof that God hasn't given up on you. You've been carried by grace, even on the days you didn't see it. You're still being shaped, still being called, still being sent. And that means you still have a mission, right here, right now. So if no one has told you yet today, let me be the one to say it clearly. You matter. You're still in this for a reason. Your life is a testimony in progress. Mercy is not just what lifts you up, it's what sends you out. And when you step into the world again, into your ordinary morning, your quiet tasks, your unresolved questions, remember this: God is already ahead of you. He has gone before you. He walks beside you, and He's carrying what you still don't know how to name. Start this day not with striving, but with surrender. Live it not from fear, but from fullness, and let mercy lead the way. We'll meet here again tomorrow. Until then, keep walking in the light you've been given. You're doing better than you think, and grace is not done with you yet.
Every act of obedience, no matter how small, unlocks a miracle you can't yet see.
That one quiet decision, the yes no one else hears, the yes that feels insignificant in the moment, might become the most important doorway you ever walk through. We usually expect big changes to come from loud announcements or visible milestones. But heaven often moves in response to something quieter, the simple surrender of a heart that whispers, "Okay, Lord, I'll go. I'll try. I'll trust." That kind of yes doesn't demand clarity or applause. It's often uncertain. It usually feels small, but in God's hands, that small yes has the power to change everything. Let's begin here. When God whispers, don't wait for a megaphone. You don't need a megaphone when someone is already close. That sentence, said casually by someone during a conversation about prayer, settled into my soul like a quiet truth that refused to leave. We spend so much time asking God to speak louder, longing for some kind of clear, unmistakable signal that tells us what to do. But what if the real issue isn't that God is too quiet, but that we've become too loud? Bob Goff once said, "God speaks in whispers because He's near. You don't need to shout when you're close." And maybe that's what we keep forgetting. That the quiet voice we strain to hear isn't far away. It's not hiding in the distance. It's close. Close enough to whisper. Close enough to guide us without volume. Close enough to trust. The whisper is not the absence of power. It's the sign of intimacy. And so many of us are living our lives waiting for God to shout over our distractions, to cut through the chaos with a lightning bolt moment. But more often than not, He doesn't. Instead, He waits, He whispers, and He looks to see if we're willing to slow down, to turn toward Him, to respond in trust. That's the thing about obedience. It rarely comes in the form of a booming command. It usually comes as a gentle prompting, a shift in your spirit, a tug in your heart that won't let go. The problem is, we're not always trained to notice it. We're trained to chase big things. We're conditioned to move fast, to expect clarity before commitment, to crave certainty before surrender. But the way of faith is softer, slower, and far more relational. Louis Gilliot once said, "Obedience is not about understanding the outcome. It's about trusting the one who calls." It's not about calculating the pros and cons. It's not about being 100% sure. It's about recognizing the voice of the one who loves you more than you love yourself and deciding that his whisper is worth more than your own logic. But let's be honest. Saying yes to a whisper is hard, especially when everything in your life is loud. The responsibilities, the expectations, the opinions, the doubts, they all speak with megaphone volume. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, the Spirit of God asks for your attention, not by overpowering those voices, but by inviting you to listen deeper. That kind of listening takes intention. It means you might have to turn down some volume elsewhere. It means you might not get the confirmation you want. It means saying yes without applause, without evidence, without a guarantee. But that yes, that small whispered yes, is the beginning of miracles you can't see yet. The truth is, some of the most powerful stories in Scripture started not with grand gestures, but with quiet responses. They didn't always begin with confidence. They began with surrender, a soft answer, a willingness to be led. 1 Samuel 3:10 captures this beautifully. Young Samuel, hearing the voice of God for the first time, simply says, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." That's all. Not a strategy, not a declaration, just availability. That availability is everything. Because God doesn't just want your talent. He doesn't just want your performance. He wants your posture. He wants a heart that says, "I don't fully understand, but I'm willing." And let's be clear, obedience doesn't always feel spiritual. It often feels ordinary. It looks like calling someone even though you feel awkward, showing up to serve when you'd rather stay home, saying no to something easy, saying yes to something inconvenient, letting go of something you once thought you couldn't live without, speaking a word of encouragement you weren't sure was needed, forgiving someone who never apologized. These are the moments that often pass by unnoticed, but in heaven they resound. Because God sees not just what you do, but how you respond. And when you respond to a whisper, even while the world is yelling louder things at you, that is the kind of faith that pleases Him. Sometimes we wait too long for certainty. We stall because we want proof. We hesitate because we want to be sure we're not making a mistake. But what if the only mistake is waiting too long? What if the longer you ignore the whisper, the quieter it becomes? What if obedience is less about the clarity of the instruction and more about the condition of your heart? We often ask God for signs, but maybe today God is asking for surrender. Maybe He's saying, "I don't need you to figure this out. I need you to trust me enough to say yes." Maybe you're not waiting on Him. Maybe He's waiting on you, not because He's impatient, but because He loves you too much to let you stay where you are. Because He sees who you'll become on the other side of this yes. Because He knows what's been prepared in advance for you to do. And because He wants you to experience the joy of partnering with Him, even when it's terrifying. That's the sacred tension of trust. You won't always see the full picture. You won't always feel ready, but you can still respond. And when you do, you enter into the kind of life that's shaped by presence, not performance. You begin to see God in new ways. You become more aware of how He speaks. You learn to recognize His nudge in the middle of your day. And you start to live not for outcomes, but for obedience. That shift is subtle, but it's everything. Because it moves you from striving to surrender, from waiting to walking, from asking for signs to becoming one. And that's when faith becomes real. When you're no longer trying to control the outcome, but simply longing to stay close to the one who called you. You don't need a megaphone when someone is already close. So if the voice feels quiet today, pause, lean in. The whisper might be your invitation to begin again. You don't have to feel brave. You don't have to have the full plan. You just have to be willing to answer like Samuel did, "Speak, Lord, I'm listening." That's where everything starts. In the stillness, in the softness, in the yes no one else hears but God. It might not look like much to others, but heaven sees it differently. Heaven sees that moment as sacred, as the beginning of a new story, as the first spark of a flame that will light the way for others. So don't wait for the megaphone. Don't demand a perfect sign. Let the whisper be enough. Let the small yes be the spark, and trust that the one who whispered to your heart is more than able to lead you all the way through. Small seeds, eternal harvest. The world often measures value by scale. The bigger the platform, the louder the applause, the greater the crowd, the more meaningful we think something is. But in the kingdom of God, significance is never determined by visibility. It's not about how many people saw it or praised it. It's about whether it was faithful, whether it was planted in obedience, and whether it bore fruit that outlasted the season in which it was sown. That's why some of the greatest spiritual movements didn't begin on stages. They began in quiet rooms, in quiet hearts, through small decisions that nobody else noticed at first. That's the miracle of God's math. A seed might be the smallest thing in the field, but it holds more potential than the tallest tree ever could at its start. You're not disqualified from legacy just because your beginning feels small. There's a reason the Lord said, "Do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin." Zechariah 4:10. That verse doesn't just invite you to accept your humble start. It says that God rejoices in it. He celebrates the first step, not the finished product, not the perfect outcome, but the willingness to begin. That means your tiny acts of faith matter more than you know. The moment you choose to be kind when you could have been bitter. The prayer you whisper on your lunch break. The time you share your testimony with a single person, even if your voice shakes. The dollar you give when it's all you have. These are the things heaven sees. And these are the things that ripple out far beyond what your eyes can measure. Francis Chan once said, "Sometimes the greatest impact comes from the smallest act." And it's true. It's not about impressing others. It's about planting what God asked you to plant and letting Him take care of the harvest. But here's where it gets even more beautiful. The harvest doesn't just bless you, it blesses generations. Because the yes you say today can become the root system of someone else's faith tomorrow. That's the nature of seeds. They're slow, they're buried, they go unseen. But underground, something powerful is happening. Roots are forming, foundations are spreading. And eventually, when the time is right, they rise. Jesus spoke of this very truth when He compared the kingdom of God to a mustard seed. He said, "Though it is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree." Matthew 13:31-32. The tree wasn't in the seed yet, but the potential was. Just like your obedience today might look small on the outside, but heaven knows what's hidden within it. So if you feel like what you're offering is too insignificant to matter, pause. Consider this. God has never once asked you to measure your offering by the world's standards. He asks only that you offer it. You might say, "I'm not ready." You might think, "What difference will this make?" But God is not limited by your doubts. He is not waiting for you to be impressive. He is waiting for you to be available. And the moment you say yes, even in fear, even with trembling, He moves. And He moves through you. Sometimes the most powerful miracles in your life begin in places of obscurity, not when everything is set and perfect and visible, but when you trust enough to take a step with no spotlight, no audience, and no guarantees. And those steps are where character is built. They're where intimacy with God is formed. Because when you walk in small obedience, you learn to walk closely. You don't sprint ahead. You don't try to prove anything. You just walk in rhythm with Him. You might be sowing something right now that feels like it's being swallowed by the dirt. You've prayed, you've served, you've given, but you're not seeing the growth. And it's tempting to give up before anything breaks through. But just because you don't see the results yet doesn't mean the seed is dead. It just means it's not harvest time. This is where your faith becomes endurance. Because obedience isn't measured by what you get in return. It's measured by how willing you are to keep planting, keep trusting, keep watering, even when nothing looks different. You're not just doing this for today. You're sowing for eternity. And eternity always begins in places no one else can see. That's what makes obedience so powerful. It's not performance, it's partnership. You're not carrying the pressure to make it grow. You're partnering with the God who already sees the harvest. He knows what's coming. You don't have to. Your job is just to keep saying yes. And yes can look like a lot of things. It can be quiet service. It can be faithfulness in a job no one appreciates. It can be praying when you're tired, showing up when you feel overlooked, loving when it would be easier to shut down, speaking up when it would be safer to stay silent. It doesn't need to be grand. It just needs to be real. You don't need to be noticed to be effective. In fact, most of the fruit that shapes people's lives is grown in unseen places, under pressure, in silence, through tears. But that's where the deepest roots are born. That's why God rejoices in small beginnings. Not because He's settling, but because He sees the future in your seed. He sees the harvest hidden inside your yes. So let your hands keep planting even when your eyes can't see the outcome. Let your heart stay open even when your mind wants certainty. Let your soul rest in the truth that what you plant in faith will never be forgotten in heaven. Because what grows from your small obedience might be the shelter someone else stands under in their storm. God is a multiplier of small things. He takes the 5 loaves and 2 fish and feeds thousands. He takes a shepherd, boys sling and brings down a giant. He takes mustard seed faith and moves mountains. And He can take your smallest yes and turn it into something you never dreamed possible. That's why today matters. That's why faithfulness matters. That's why your not much becomes more than enough when placed in the hands of a God who doesn't overlook anything given in love. When you start viewing your days through this lens, everything shifts. The mundane becomes meaningful. The overlooked becomes holy. And the quiet obedience of your ordinary life becomes the soil where extraordinary things take root. So if you're tired of not seeing fruit, don't stop sowing. If you feel like your offering is too small, don't stop giving. If you feel buried, remember, maybe you're not buried at all. Maybe you're being planted. And what grows from this place will not just bless your life, it will bless everyone who walks near you. You don't have to understand it fully to say yes. You don't have to see the finish line to begin again. You don't have to feel strong to move forward. All you have to do is trust the one who's asking you to plant. Because He knows what's coming. He sees the tree already rising. He sees the generations who will sit under the branches. He sees the beauty that will come from the broken soil of today. So go ahead. Sow that seed. Whisper that yes. Heaven is already rejoicing. Saying yes when you're still afraid. Obedience would be easy if fear weren't in the picture. If every call came with clear instructions, steady ground, and guaranteed outcomes, then the word yes would flow effortlessly from our mouths. But most of the time, that's not how it happens. The invitation God offers is often wrapped in mystery. It feels inconvenient, illogical, uncomfortable, and fear shows up dressed like wisdom, whispering, "You're not ready, this is too risky," or "What if you fail?" Yet faith was never meant to be lived only when we feel brave. The moments that shape your life the most will rarely be the ones where you're completely confident. They'll be the ones where you move forward anyway, trembling, unsure, and fully aware of your own limitations, but still willing to trust the one who asked. That's why courage is such a sacred thing in the kingdom. It's not flashy, it's not loud. It's often the quiet decision to obey while your heart is still pounding. It's the willingness to say yes even while fear is still screaming in your ears. Joyce Meyer once put it in the simplest terms: courage isn't the absence of fear, it's doing it afraid. That truth has anchored countless souls through uncertain callings, because it reminds us that bravery isn't something you wait to feel, it's something you choose to carry. Think about how many people in Scripture had to step into their purpose before they felt ready. Moses didn't feel qualified to speak. Gideon asked for signs. Esther risked everything without knowing if she'd be received. And yet, their yes still counted. God didn't dismiss them for being afraid. He just asked them to keep walking. When fear tries to convince you that your obedience is dangerous, pause and remember who's really inviting you. It's not the world. It's not the pressure to perform. It's not even your own ambition. It's God. And God doesn't lead you toward failure. He leads you through transformation. His call may be costly, but it always carries a deeper purpose than what you can perceive at the beginning. Zechariah 4:6 reminds us, "Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord." That means you're not being asked to rely on your own strength. You're not expected to have everything together. You're simply being invited to make room, for Him to work, for Him to move, and for His Spirit to carry what you cannot. So what does it look like to say yes while you're still afraid? It looks like walking into the room even though your hands are shaking. It looks like saying, "I'll try," even when your voice quivers. It looks like choosing to stay open when your instinct says to shut down. And it looks like trusting that God isn't disappointed by your fear. He's deeply present within it. The lie many people believe is that fear disqualifies them, that unless they're overflowing with faith and certainty, they're not worthy to be used. But Scripture tells another story. Again and again, God uses people at their weakest. He doesn't call them because they're fearless. He calls them because they're willing. And then, in their weakness, His power is made perfect. The fear you're feeling isn't the final word. The question isn't whether you're afraid, it's whether you'll obey anyway. There's a phrase that's circulated in church culture for decades. God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Though it's been said often, it still speaks powerfully to the core of what holds many of us back. We wait to feel ready. We wait to feel strong. But what if the readiness comes after the yes? What if strength doesn't show up until your foot steps forward? You weren't made to carry this calling alone. You were made to walk in step with the one who sees the whole path, and He's not waiting for you to muster up perfection. He's waiting for you to trust His presence. This isn't about doing something dramatic. It's not about chasing a spotlight or proving your worth. It's about answering a simple invitation. Will you trust me here even now? Your yes might not sound confident. It might not come with eloquent words or polished faith. It might be nothing more than a quiet, trembling whisper. But even that is enough. God has never been limited by human insecurity. He's not searching for the most impressive resume or the cleanest past. He's looking for hearts that are willing, even when scared. Because a willing heart is a surrendered heart, and a surrendered heart is the most powerful vessel in the hands of a faithful God. When you say yes while still afraid, something changes in you. You grow in ways comfort never could teach you. Your soul stretches, your roots deepen. You discover strength that had been buried under years of fear. And over time, that strength doesn't come from trying harder, it comes from trusting deeper. Sometimes fear lingers even after you've made the right decision, but don't confuse that with failure. The presence of fear doesn't cancel out your obedience, it reveals the cost. And anything that costs you something is worth watching closely because it often carries the deepest fruit. You might never feel ready. You might always feel like someone else could do it better. But here's what you need to know. God didn't ask someone else. He asked you, not because you're perfect, but because you're placed in this moment, in this season, for a reason you may not fully understand until years from now. So let the fear be there, but don't let it be the guide. Let God be the one you follow, even if you feel unsteady, even if your history tells you to hold back, even if the outcome is unclear. You don't need a detailed plan to say yes. You need a trusting heart, and that trust doesn't come from seeing the full picture. It comes from knowing who's holding the brush. You've likely said no before out of fear. You've pulled back when you should have leaned in. That doesn't mean it's too late. Every day, mercy gives you the chance to begin again, to speak a new yes, to open the door you once locked, to walk forward even if you're limping. God doesn't rush you. He doesn't shame you. He gently invites you forward. And every time you say yes, even with shaking hands, it becomes easier to say it again next time. That's how courage is built. That's how obedience becomes a lifestyle instead of a performance. There will be days when the yes feels heavier than you expected. Days when you question whether you heard God clearly. Days when fear tries to convince you to turn back. But remember, even Jesus before the cross prayed, if there's another way on, and yet he still said, not my will, but yours be done. That's what love looks like. That's what trust looks like. And you are walking in the same footsteps. You are not doing this alone. When you walk into the unknown in obedience, the presence of God walks with you. You might not always feel it. You might not always understand it. But that doesn't make it any less true. Sometimes the most sacred acts of courage happen behind closed doors, away from recognition, fueled only by faith. And that's more than enough. The kingdom of God has never been built on the backs of the fearless. It's been built on the hearts of the faithful. People who said yes in the dark, yes in the waiting, yes when nothing made sense. And that yes, repeated again and again, became the foundation of something eternal. So if you're in that moment now, standing at the edge of something unknown, weighing the risks, feeling the tremble, don't wait until the fear disappears. Let your yes rise up from the middle of it. Let it be your offering. Let it be your act of worship. Because the very place you feel most afraid might be the place God is preparing to show you the fullness of His strength. Say yes when it's still uncertain. Say yes when the voices of doubt are loud. Say yes when the fear feels like too much, and watch how heaven moves in response. Because that small, trembling yes, it echoes in eternity. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. There's a kind of obedience that's quiet but quick. And then there's the kind that stalls in waiting rooms of our own design, waiting for confirmation, comfort, more time, or just the feeling of readiness. We don't always say no outright. We just say, not yet. And while that delay feels harmless on the surface, it often costs us more than we realize. Sometimes the most dangerous word isn't never, it's later. Because later has a way of turning into never without us even noticing. What starts as postponing out of caution can become paralysis. What feels like being responsible can turn into running away. We tell ourselves we're just being wise or waiting for the right conditions, but if we're honest, it's often fear wearing the mask of wisdom. It's our discomfort with uncertainty trying to pretend it's discernment. But God doesn't call us into a life of convenience. He calls us into a life of trust. And trust doesn't always get the luxury of time. Sometimes the invitation to move is for now. And every time we delay, we risk missing something sacred. That's why the whisper of the Holy Spirit is so tender and yet so urgent. It doesn't force, it invites. And it doesn't come to entertain our schedule, it comes to transform our heart. So when we postpone that response, when we linger in indecision long after God has spoken, we're not just delaying action, we're resisting alignment. Delayed obedience, then, is not neutral. It has consequences, not necessarily in the form of punishment, but in missed opportunities. The unopened door, the chance to be someone's answer, the growth that only happens on the other side of that yes. God's mercy is vast and patient, but that doesn't mean every moment is recyclable. Some opportunities are deeply time sensitive, not because God is harsh, but because He's weaving a bigger story. And your hesitation might leave a thread hanging. There's a reason Scripture says to obey is better than sacrifice. 1 Samuel 15:22. The heart of that verse isn't about rules, it's about trust. It's about how God values relationship over rituals. He doesn't just want your offerings. He wants your alignment with His timing, His voice, His will. Sometimes we think we're doing something noble by holding off. But the longer we wait to say yes, the more we start building a life around delay instead of trust. And eventually, delay becomes a habit. We get used to the pause button. We become spectators in our own calling. That's the danger of waiting too long. We get comfortable watching instead of walking. We start to believe the lie that obedience can always be postponed without consequence. And while grace always meets us where we are, it doesn't remove the fact that time lost can't always be regained. John Ortberg once wrote, "Procrastination is the thief of purpose." Not because God stops loving us when we hesitate, but because our purpose begins to drift when we stop responding. You might still feel the call. You might still hear that same whisper. But the opportunity that once stood wide open may not linger forever. Not because God withdraws His love, but because timing matters. When God says move, there's always a reason. Even when you can't see it, even when you don't understand it, your yes today may be the answer to someone else's need tomorrow. And your delay may leave a space unfilled. But here's the good news. Obedience isn't about speed. It's about surrender. And that surrender begins the moment you stop trying to control the outcome and just follow. If you've waited too long before, if you've lived in the land of delay longer than you wanted, you don't have to stay there. There's grace for the ones who return late, but there's also an invitation to stop postponing what you already know you're called to do. God won't shame you for your hesitation, but He will ask you to move now. This moment matters. Because what you say yes to now doesn't just shape your day, it shapes your soul. It grows your capacity to hear Him next time. It deepens your dependence. It turns your faith into action. And each time you say yes a little faster, you become more attuned to the rhythm of His voice. Obedience is a muscle. The more you exercise it, the more naturally it responds. The more you delay, the weaker it becomes. God never demands perfection. He just longs for responsiveness. You don't have to feel completely ready. You don't have to know how it will all work out. You just need to be willing to move when He speaks. That's how faith matures. That's how character is built. That's how purpose takes shape, not through certainty, but through availability. Delayed obedience, at its root, often comes from wanting to retain control. We want all the pieces to make sense before we act. We want a guarantee that it won't cost too much. We want confirmation that we won't be left hanging. But that's not how trust works. Trust is what you lean on before you know how the story ends. It's what allows you to say, "I'll go," even when you don't know where the path leads. And the truth is, you will rarely feel fully ready, but God isn't asking for readiness. He's asking for faith. What's waiting on your yes right now? What person needs to hear the words you've been holding back? What move have you postponed because fear felt more comfortable than courage? What seed have you been afraid to plant because the soil looks too uncertain? Every time you pause in fear, remember this. If the Lord is the one who called you, then the outcome isn't your burden to bear. Your part is obedience. His part is everything else. When you shift from delay to trust, something powerful happens. You begin to experience the nearness of God, not just in worship moments, but in real steps of surrender. You begin to live like someone who believes God can be trusted with your future, even if today feels risky. Every small act of obedience draws you closer to the heart of God. It teaches your soul how to move in rhythm with His. And it forms the kind of life that doesn't just believe in God, but walks with Him, step by step, moment by moment, yes by yes. That kind of life is rare, but it's available. And it begins not in some grand display, but in a whispered decision. I won't delay this time. I'll say yes now. When the Spirit nudges you, don't argue. Don't push it into next week's calendar. Don't write it off as emotion. Respond. Respond even if it scares you. Respond even if the timing isn't ideal. Respond because when you do, heaven moves. And you might not see all the fruit in the moment. You might not even feel any different. But obedience shifts things in the spiritual realm that your eyes may never fully grasp. One small yes in the right moment can carry the weight of an entire legacy. So ask yourself, what is God inviting me to do right now that I've been putting off? Don't overthink it. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. Just say yes. Because obedience delayed is opportunity diminished, but obedience now is destiny unfolding. There's still time to respond. There's still space to say yes, but don't let this moment slip into the fog of postponement. Don't convince yourself that next week will feel easier. It won't. And the longer you wait, the quieter the call can become. God's grace is patient. But obedience works best in real time. So say yes while the voice is still fresh. Say yes while the door is still open. Say yes while your heart still feels the urgency. Because what you delay today might become the regret of tomorrow. But what you obey today, that becomes the seed of a story you'll be grateful you stepped into. The ripple effect of a single yes. We don't always get to see the full impact of our obedience. Sometimes it feels like our yes falls into silence, like it disappears into the background of an ordinary life. But what we often forget is that no act of obedience exists in isolation. Every yes, no matter how private or personal, creates a ripple that moves outward, touching lives we never imagined, crossing distances we'll never measure, echoing into futures we won't always live to see. Obedience isn't just about the moment it happens. It's about everything that unfolds because of it. Bianca Juarez Olthoff captured this beautifully when she said, "Legacy is not built in loud moments, but in quiet obedience." Most people won't remember the day you chose to forgive. They won't see the hour you spent serving in silence. They won't notice the times you held your tongue, humbled your heart, or stayed faithful when walking away would have been easier. But heaven sees, and eternity records every quiet step. It's easy to believe your yes only matters if it comes with immediate results, but faith was never about immediacy. It's always been about impact, the kind of impact that grows slowly, takes root deeply, and stretches far beyond your lifetime. When God calls you to something, He's not just thinking of your comfort, He's thinking of your legacy. He's thinking of the children who will grow up differently because you said yes. The friendships that will heal, the neighborhoods that will shift, the strangers who will be reached, the lives that will be saved. He sees the full picture. You just see the brushstroke. And that's where trust becomes sacred, because it means saying yes not only for yourself, but for the ones who will come after you. Your yes today becomes someone else's hope tomorrow. It's not an exaggeration. It's how the kingdom works. Every generation stands on the shoulders of someone else's obedience. We're living in the overflow of prayers prayed decades ago. We're walking in doors someone else opened. We're reaping fruit we didn't plant. And one day someone will say the same about you. That's why Joshua, near the end of his life, declared, "Choose this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Joshua 24:15. It wasn't just a personal decision. It was generational. It was a commitment that echoed through his lineage, because Joshua understood that a single yes could become a house-wide reality. You have the same power. You can shift the atmosphere of your family with one decision. You can alter the trajectory of your story by surrendering where you once resisted. You can become the starting point of healing, courage, kindness, and grace. Even if no one else has walked that road before you, your yes can build it from the ground up. Don't underestimate the weight of what you're carrying. Don't dismiss the potential hidden inside your obedience, because when you say yes to God, you're saying yes to the kind of legacy that stretches past your own hands. You're planting seeds in soil that others will harvest, and sometimes it won't feel spiritual. It won't feel significant. It will feel small, frustrating, and mundane. But if it's born out of obedience, it's sacred. Washing the dishes, showing up to work, making space for prayer, listening when you'd rather talk, choosing to believe when everything feels dry. These are the acts that change the world from the inside out. Your small yes to God in the dark might become the light that guides someone else's journey. And maybe you'll never meet them. Maybe your ripple will reach someone who doesn't know your name, but God knows. And He's the one weaving it all together. Every thread, every connection, every unfolding layer of grace. You don't need to track the results. You don't need to know how far the ripple goes. You just need to be faithful to drop the stone. Obedience doesn't always feel glamorous, but it always holds power. And the more you say yes, the more natural it becomes. It turns into a lifestyle, not just a moment, a pattern, not just a response. And you'll find yourself saying yes, not just because you have to, but because you want to. Because you've seen how God works. You've tasted the fruit of trust. You've watched him move through your weakness, and you'll begin to crave that closeness more than you crave clarity. Every single yes you've whispered matters. The one you said when you didn't feel spiritual enough, the one you said after years of silence, the one you said with tears running down your face, the one you said even while doubt knocked at your door. None of those yeses were wasted. They've shaped you, they've grown you, and they've positioned you to carry something holy into the world. Obedience doesn't just change outcomes, it changes people. It changes you. It makes you softer, braver, more aware of God's presence. It tunes your ears to the Spirit's leading. It builds a backbone of faith that stands firm when storms hit. It roots you in truth when lies swirl around you. It makes you the kind of person others look to, not because you're perfect, but because you're faithful. And faithful people are who God uses to carry his promises into places no one else is willing to go. You were never called to live safe. You were called to live surrendered. You were never asked to control the outcome. You were asked to trust the one who does. So let today be the day you stop holding back. Let it be the day you say yes without conditions. Let it be the day you recognize that your ripple is already moving outward, whether it's seen or unseen, whether it's celebrated or misunderstood, whether it feels like victory or feels like surrender, it matters. Because the smallest yes, placed in the hands of a big God, becomes the beginning of something eternal. You may never see the full effect of the yes you say today. You may never know how far your obedience reaches, but what matters isn't how much you see, it's how much you trust. God is not asking you to move mountains. He's asking you to say yes. Yes to the quiet prompt. Yes to the gentle tug. Yes to the unseen path, to the call that scares you. Yes to becoming someone who moves when God speaks, even if no one claps, even if no one notices. Because in his kingdom, faithfulness always bears fruit. You don't need a spotlight. You just need surrender. You don't need a plan. You just need a yes. So if you've been waiting for clarity, waiting for confirmation, waiting for courage, let this be your confirmation. This is your moment. You've waited long enough. Your obedience still matters. Your yes is not too late. Your story is still being written. Say yes now and watch how heaven writes the rest, because the yes you whisper today might be the breakthrough someone else has been praying for.